The nurse's fingers are cool against his wrist. Seo Jae-won blinks awake to fluorescent lights, and the first thing he sees is a number floating above her head. 0 hours, 3 minutes, 12 seconds. It hovers there, bright and precise, right above her neat little bun. The digits are counting down. He squints, sure it's a hallucination from the accident. But the number doesn't go away. 0 hours, 2 minutes, 48 seconds. The nurse smiles at him and says his vitals look good. She asks how he's feeling. Jae-won opens his mouth to answer. 0 hours, 2 minutes, 14 seconds. And then the number flickers. She sways on her feet. Her clipboard clatters to the floor. Jae-won lurches forward in the bed. He grabs her arm before she hits the ground. The number hits 0. Her eyes roll back and she seizes against him. Doctors flood the room in seconds. Someone yells for a crash cart. Jae-won watches them work on her, his heart slamming against his ribs. The number is gone now. She's still alive, but barely. And he knew it was coming. He saw it. The chaos lasts for 12 minutes before they wheel her out. A different nurse checks his chart with shaking hands. She tells him he's lucky to be alive. Jae-won stares past her at the empty hallway. His own hands are trembling. He was a regular office worker 24 hours ago. Now he's seeing death dates floating over people's heads. The doctors keep him for observation. 3 broken ribs and a concussion from the taxi that hit him, but his brain feels sharper than it ever has. Every time a staff member passes his door, a number blinks into view above them. 28 years, 142 days, 5 hours. 61 years, 19 days, 11 hours. 3 years, 204 days, 16 hours. It's constant. It's overwhelming. Jae-won closes his eyes and tries to make it stop. The numbers keep burning through his eyelids, bright as neon. He stays awake all night watching them flicker and reset around him. By morning, he learns how to toggle it off. A mental switch he didn't know he had. Click, the numbers vanish. Click, they're back. It's that simple. A young doctor comes in with his discharge papers. Jae-won clicks the ability on, just to test it. 47 years, 82 days, 7 hours. The doctor is fine. Healthy even. Jae-won asks about the nurse from last night. The doctor pauses. He says she's stable. A brain aneurysm came out of nowhere, the kind of thing no one could predict. Jae-won nods and doesn't say a word about the number he saw. He signs the papers and walks out into the Seoul morning. The city is loud and bright and packed with people, and every single one of them has a number. Jae-won stands on the sidewalk, frozen. A businessman rushes past him with 19 years, 3 days, 2 hours. A grandmother with a shopping cart has 4 years, 88 days, 14 hours. A kid on a skateboard zips by at 62 years, 211 days, 9 hours. It's dizzying. Useful, maybe, but dizzying. He takes the bus home to his apartment. 3 people on board have numbers under 1 year. Jae-won watches them the whole ride. One of them is a young woman scrolling through her phone with a smile on her face. She has no idea she's got less than 8 months left. He wants to tell her. He wants to warn every single person on this bus with a low number. But what would he even say? Hey, I can see your death date and it's coming up fast. They'd lock him in a psych ward. So he stays quiet. He gets off at his stop and climbs the stairs to his cramped studio apartment. Everything is exactly how he left it before the accident. The pile of unpaid bills on the counter. The suit jacket draped over his desk chair. The half-eaten ramen cup that's definitely growing something now. Jae-won sits on his bed and stares at the wall. He clicks the ability on, clicks it off, clicks it on again. It's real. It's still there. He pulls out his phone and texts his boss that he needs another day off. Then he starts experimenting. The apartment building is perfect for it. He stands at his window and watches the street below. Every pedestrian who walks by gets a quick click. Most people have decades left. Some have less than 5 years. A delivery driver on a scooter has 11 hours. 11 hours. Jae-won watches the guy weave through traffic, and his stomach knots up. He keeps watching until the scooter disappears around a corner. He doesn't know what happens to the driver. He doesn't want to know. He clicks the ability off and takes a shower. Hot water helps his ribs, but it doesn't wash away the image of that delivery driver's number. Jae-won gets dressed and heads back out. He needs more data. He needs to understand what he's working with here. The convenience store near his apartment is run by an older man with kind eyes. Jae-won buys a coffee and clicks the ability on as he pays. 8 years, 42 days, 3 hours. The old man smiles and asks if he's feeling better after the accident. Jae-won blinks. He asks how the man knew about the accident. The shopkeeper laughs and says it was all over the local news. A taxi jumped the curb and flattened a young man against a building. The doctors called it a miracle that he survived. Jae-won didn't even know there were news cameras there. He thanks the man for the coffee and steps back outside. A miracle. That's one word for it. He sits on a bench in the small park across from the store and watches people pass. The ability is getting easier to control now. He can flick it on for half a second to grab a number, then turn it off before the fatigue sets in. But after about 40 people, a dull ache starts throbbing behind his eyes. So there's a limit. Good to know. He's rubbing his temples when a new number flashes into view above someone's head. 0 hours, 0 minutes, 37 seconds. 37 seconds. Jae-won's head snaps up. A middle-aged man in a suit is crossing the street, phone pressed to his ear. He's arguing about something. A deal, maybe. He's waving his free hand around like he's reeling in a big fish. He doesn't see the truck. Jae-won is on his feet before he can think. He sprints toward the crosswalk. The truck is coming way too fast. The man is still in the middle of the street, still yelling into his phone. The number ticks down. 0 hours, 0 minutes, 11 seconds. Jae-won tackles him onto the opposite curb. The truck roars past them, horn blaring, missing them by inches. The businessman is shouting, his phone skittering across the asphalt. He demands to know what Jae-won thinks he's doing. Jae-won looks up at the man's head. The number is stuttering, flickering like a bad light bulb, and then it resets. 68 years, 194 days, 12 hours. It worked. He changed it. Jae-won gets to his feet and offers the man a hand. He says the guy almost walked into a truck. The businessman finally looks at the road, at his shattered phone, at the retreating truck. His face goes pale. He stammers out a thank you and asks how Jae-won knew. Jae-won just shrugs and says he's got good reflexes. The businessman presses a business card into his hand and tells him to call if he ever needs anything. Then he stumbles away, still shaking. Jae-won looks at the card. It's from a big investment firm. He pockets it and starts walking home. And then the pain hits, a sharp, searing jolt right through his chest. Jae-won doubles over on the sidewalk, gasping. It feels like someone reached into his ribcage and squeezed. He braces himself against a lamppost, breathing hard. The pain lasts maybe 10 seconds. Then it's gone, leaving him sweaty and shaking. He straightens up slowly. No one around him seems to have noticed. Just another guy having a bad moment on a Seoul sidewalk. Jae-won presses a hand to his chest. His heart is still beating. But something is different. He can feel it in his bones. Changing that man's fate cost him something. He just doesn't know what yet. He goes home and collapses onto his bed. The ceiling fan spins lazily above him. He saved a life today. A real, actual life. The truck would have killed that businessman for sure. Jae-won stares at the fan blades and thinks about the nurse in the hospital. He couldn't save her. He didn't know how. But the businessman is still walking around because of him. He clicks the ability on and off a few more times, watching the numbers flicker across his vision. The girl in the apartment next door has 54 years. The old man downstairs has 8 years. The stray cat on the fire escape has 3 years, 7 days, and he's not even sure why he can see that one. Maybe it works on anything alive. He files that away for later. The next morning, Jae-won goes back to the convenience store. The old shopkeeper is still there with his 8 years. Jae-won buys a newspaper and sits in the park again, scanning through the obituary section. He checks the dates against his memory. A city councilman who died of a heart attack yesterday. Jae-won remembers seeing him on TV 3 days ago. He clicks the ability on and stares at the man's photo. No number appears, so it doesn't work on pictures. That's one limitation he can write down. He folds the newspaper and buys a cheap notebook from a stationery shop. He spends the afternoon writing down everything he's learned. Line of sight only. Range seems to be about 100 meters. Can toggle on and off. Causes eye strain and headache with prolonged use. Does not work on himself. Does not work on photos or video. Numbers can change if he intervenes. Intervention causes chest pain. He stares at that last bullet point for a long time. The chest pain is the key. Changing fate isn't free. He's paying for it with something. And he's got a sinking feeling he knows exactly what. His own lifespan. It's the only thing that makes sense. He's trading his own time to buy more for other people. Equal exchange or close to it. Jae-won sets the notebook down and rubs his eyes. There was a man on the bus yesterday with less than a year left. Could he save him? Would he even want to, knowing it would carve a chunk out of his own life? He doesn't have an answer for that yet, but he knows one thing for certain. This power isn't random. The taxi that hit him, the near-death experience, the awakening in the hospital. Something or someone gave him this ability, and he's going to find out why. He clicks the ability on one more time and looks at his own reflection in the dark TV screen across the room. Nothing. No number. No countdown. Just his own tired face staring back at him. Jae-won clicks it off and goes to sleep. He dreams of numbers falling like rain. 3 days pass. Jae-won learns to manage the headaches. He learns his limits. About 50 to 60 people scanned in an hour is the sweet spot before the pain kicks in. He also learns that most people have boring, normal lifespans. Decades of time ahead of them. Nothing dramatic, nothing urgent. But the ones that don't are like flares in the dark. A jogger in the park with only 2 days left. A woman at the grocery store with 6 hours. A construction worker with 43 minutes. Jae-won doesn't save any of them. He tells himself it's because he doesn't know how. He tells himself the cost is too high. But the truth is simpler and uglier. He's scared. Scared of the pain in his chest. Scared of what he's giving up every time he intervenes. Scared of becoming someone who plays God. But on the 4th day, everything changes. He's walking home from a convenience store run, a bag of ramen and energy drinks in his hand. The street is quiet. It's late, almost midnight, and then he hears the shout. A woman's voice, sharp and afraid. "Give me your purse!" Jae-won rounds the corner. A man in a hoodie has a young woman backed against a wall. She's clutching her bag to her chest. She's not screaming anymore. She's frozen. Jae-won clicks the ability on. The mugger's number blinks into view above his head. 47 years, 201 days, 16 hours. He's not dying anytime soon. But the girl? The girl has 0 hours, 4 minutes, 22 seconds. 4 minutes, 22 seconds. Jae-won drops his grocery bag. The ramen hits the pavement with a crunch. Both the mugger and the girl turn to look at him. And Jae-won walks forward, eyes locked on the mugger. His voice comes out calm, almost casual. He asks the guy if he wants to know a secret. The mugger snarls and tells him to mind his own business. Jae-won takes another step closer. Tells the mugger he can see when people die. The number above the guy's head says he's got 47 years. But Jae-won can change it. He can make it say 0, right now, tonight. The mugger laughs. He calls Jae-won crazy. He says he's going to gut him and the girl both. Jae-won stops walking. He's about 10 feet away now. He looks the mugger dead in the eyes, and he says one thing. 47 years, 201 days, 16 hours. The mugger's laugh dies in his throat. Jae-won doesn't blink. He asks if the guy wants to test him. The streetlight flickers. The mugger stares at Jae-won's face. Whatever he sees there makes his hands start shaking. He shoves the girl aside and bolts down the alley. The girl slumps against the wall, gasping. Jae-won clicks the ability off. The girl's number disappears from his vision. She's still alive. She's going to stay alive. He walks over and offers her his hand. She stares at him like he's an alien. She asks how he knew the mugger's lifespan. Jae-won just smiles and says he's very good at guessing. He picks up his crushed ramen and walks home. That night, he sits on his bed and stares at the ceiling. He didn't change anything tonight. He just pretended he could. The power works as a threat. That's a new piece of data. And it means he can use this ability for more than just saving people. He can use it to intimidate, to manipulate, to control. Jae-won lies back and closes his eyes. The numbers are still there behind his eyelids, waiting. He's starting to think this isn't just a curse. It's a weapon. And he's only just begun to figure out how to use it. Jae-won doesn't sleep much that night. The ramen tasted like victory, but the questions kept him awake. Who gave him this ability? And what do they want in return? Morning comes too fast. Gray light leaking through his cheap blinds. He drags himself out of bed and does what he always does now. He toggles the ability on and looks out the window. Delivery scooter weaves through traffic. The driver's number glowing a comfortable 42 years. A grandmother shuffles along the sidewalk with her tiny dog, 9 years left. An office worker in a rumpled suit power walks toward the subway, his number flickering at 11 months. Jae-won grabs his jacket. He needs coffee, and he needs more data. The cafe 2 blocks from his apartment is already crowded with the morning rush. Our boy orders an iced Americano and finds a corner seat by the window. Perfect vantage point. He watches the stream of commuters flowing past the glass like fish in a current. Most are boring, decades stacked on decades. A few flicker with shorter fuses, but nothing urgent. He sips his coffee and lets his eyes drift. And then he sees her, a woman in a sharp navy blazer, phone pressed to her ear, speed walking toward the crosswalk. Her number pulses above her head in bright, insistent digits. 0 years, 0 days, 0 hours. 3 minutes, 2 seconds now. Jae-won's coffee cup stops halfway to his mouth. He's seen low numbers before, but never this low. Never someone so close to the edge while looking so perfectly fine. The woman laughs at something the person on the phone says. She adjusts her bag on her shoulder and steps toward the curb. Jae-won is already on his feet. He shoves through the cafe door and bursts onto the sidewalk just as the crosswalk signal flips to green. The woman steps off the curb. He can hear the growl of an engine coming too fast from the left. A delivery truck, its driver glancing down at his phone instead of the road. The truck barrels toward the intersection. The woman doesn't see it, still chatting, still smiling. Jae-won lunges. He grabs her by the arm and yanks her backwards so hard she stumbles into him. Her phone clatters to the pavement. The truck screams through the crosswalk a half-second later, horn blaring, missing her by inches. The woman stares at the vanishing truck, her face gone pale. She asks him how he knew, her voice shaking. Jae-won picks up her phone and hands it back. He tells her he saw the truck out of the corner of his eye. He was just lucky to be looking the right way. She thanks him 6 times before her legs give out, and she has to sit down on a bench. Jae-won walks away before she can ask any more questions. The moment he's around the corner, the chest pain hits. It's sharp and hot, like someone slid a burning knife between his ribs. He braces one hand against the brick wall and breathes through it. Pain lasts about 20 seconds before fading to a dull ache. He checks his reflection in a shop window. No number above his own head, same as always. But he knows what just happened. He changed her fate, and his own lifespan paid the toll. He doesn't know how much it cost him. Days, weeks, months. It's like writing a check without knowing the balance in your account. Scary stuff. But he's not about to stop now. Jae-won walks another 2 blocks before the ache fades completely. The city keeps moving around him, oblivious. 1 million people with 1 million clocks ticking down above their heads. He buys a steamed bun from a street vendor and eats it while he walks. The vendor has 23 years left. His customer has 8. A kid on a skateboard zooms past with 71. Jae-won is learning to read the city like a weather map now. Mostly clear skies, but storms brewing in a few unlucky souls. He passes a construction site where workers in hard hats shout over the roar of machinery. One of them, a man in his 50s with a grizzled beard, has 4 days left. Jae-won stops walking. 4 days. That's a big one. The man is laughing at something his coworker said, wiping sweat from his forehead. He looks healthy, strong, no visible signs of illness, which means it's going to be an accident. Jae-won memorizes the man's face and the address of the construction site. He'll come back tomorrow and figure out a way to warn him without sounding insane. He can't save everyone, but 4 days is too short to ignore. He walks on, filing the location away in his mental map of the doomed. The afternoon sun climbs higher, and Jae-won's headache starts to creep in. He's been scanning for hours now, probably pushing past his limit. He toggles the ability off and the numbers vanish. The world looks normal again. Just people walking and cars honking and pigeons fighting over a dropped French fry. He heads toward the financial district, where the buildings get taller and the suits get more expensive. He's not looking for anyone in particular. He's just widening his range, learning the geography of death in this city. And that's when he spots the commotion outside a fancy restaurant. A small crowd is gathered on the sidewalk, phones out, recording something. Jae-won pushes through to see what's going on. An older man in an expensive charcoal suit is on his knees on the pavement. He's clutching his throat, his face turning an alarming shade of purple. A younger man in a similar suit is frantically patting him on the back, shouting for someone to call an ambulance. Nobody is doing anything useful. They're all just watching, filming, waiting for someone else to act. Our boy toggles the ability on just long enough to check. Choking man's number is blinking fast. 1 minute, 47 seconds. Jae-won shoves through the ring of bystanders and drops to his knees behind the man. He wraps his arms around the man's midsection and pulls hard. Once, twice. On the third thrust, a chunk of steak flies out of the man's mouth and skitters across the pavement. The man gasps, a huge, ragged inhale that sounds like a drowning swimmer breaking the surface. Color floods back into his face. The younger man, probably his assistant, nearly weeps with relief. Jae-won steps back, already bracing for the chest pain. Comes right on schedule, a searing spike that makes his vision blur for a moment. He grits his teeth and rides it out. The older man is on his feet now, supported by his assistant, still coughing but very much alive. He reaches out and grabs Jae-won's arm with surprising strength for someone who was just dying. He insists on knowing Jae-won's name, says he owes him everything. Jae-won gives him a small smile and says, "It was nothing, just the Heimlich, something anyone could have done." The man laughs, a hoarse, wet sound, and says nobody else stepped forward, pulls a business card from his jacket pocket and presses it into Jae-won's hand. Kang Ha-jun, chairman of Kang Investment Group. The name means nothing to Jae-won, but the card stock is thick and expensive. Chairman Kang tells him to call anytime at all. He owes Jae-won his life, and he doesn't forget his debts. Jae-won pockets the card and melts back into the crowd before anyone can ask more questions. He's not trying to collect favors, but having a rich businessman in his debt can't hurt. His chest still aches as he walks toward the subway station. This one cost him something, maybe a few weeks. He can feel it now, a subtle heaviness that wasn't there before. Like his body knows something he doesn't. He takes the subway home, the ability toggled off, his head throbbing from overuse. The train rattles through the tunnels, and Jae-won closes his eyes. 2 saves in one day. A woman at a crosswalk and a choking businessman. That's more than he's managed in all the days since he woke up in the hospital. It feels good, honestly. Scary, but good. The train stops and a new wave of passengers floods in. Jae-won opens his eyes and catches a glimpse of something unusual through the window. A man on the platform, tall and gaunt, dressed in a long dark coat despite the warm weather. He's staring directly at Jae-won, not glancing, not looking past him, staring right into his eyes through the train window. Jae-won's stomach drops. He toggles the ability on, instinct taking over. The gaunt man's number pulses into view, and Jae-won's blood runs cold. The number doesn't make sense. It isn't a countdown of days or hours or minutes. It's just a single symbol, a swirling black glyph that hurts to look at. No time, no expiration date, nothing his ability can read at all. The man on the platform smiles, a thin razor cut of a smile. The train doors close and the car lurches forward. Jae-won presses his face to the window. The platform is empty. The gaunt man is gone. Did he step behind a pillar or just vanish into thin air? Jae-won can't tell, and that's somehow worse. His chest still aches from the Heimlich save, but now a new kind of cold settles into his bones. Someone else knows about his ability. Someone who doesn't have a normal death date. Someone who isn't playing by the same rules. The train carries him home while his mind races through the possibilities. Is the gaunt man connected to whoever gave him this power? Is he a threat or a messenger? Or something else entirely? Jae-won has no answers. Just a creeping certainty that the game just got a whole lot bigger. He gets off at his stop and climbs the stairs to street level. The sun is setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. He walks the last 2 blocks to his apartment with his hands in his pockets and his head on a swivel. Nobody is following him, as far as he can tell, but the gaunt man's smile is burned into his memory. That knowing, razor-thin smile. He unlocks his door and steps inside. First thing he does is check every room, even the closet and the shower. Empty, all of it. He's alone. He sits on his bed and pulls out his notebook. The page is already half full with observations about his ability, but now he needs a new section. He writes at the top of a fresh page, anomalies. Underneath, he describes the gaunt man in detail. Tall, gaunt, long dark coat, piercing stare. Death date unreadable, replaced by a black glyph. Seen on the subway platform, disappeared after train departed. Smiled like he knew exactly who Jae-won was and what he could do. He closes the notebook and lies back on his bed. The ceiling has a water stain in the shape of a lopsided star. He's stared at it a lot these past few nights. His mind keeps circling back to the same questions. Who gave him this power and why? Someone or something orchestrated all of it, and the gaunt man is the first real clue he's found. A man with no expiration date, watching him from a subway platform. That's not a coincidence. That's a message. Jae-won sits up and grabs his phone. He types a search into the browser. Man in long dark coat. Seoul unexplained disappearances. The results are a mess of urban legends and horror forum threads. Nothing useful. He tries again with different keywords, narrowing it down. Immortal sightings, Seoul legend. Still nothing concrete, but one thread catches his eye. A user named Moonwatcher posted 3 years ago about a man who never aged. The description is vague, but the details match. Tall, gaunt, always wears a long coat regardless of weather. The post claims this man has been seen for decades, never changing, always watching. The thread is locked, and the Moonwatcher account has been deleted. Jae-won screenshots the post before it can vanish from his screen. He has a name now, or at least a handle, Moonwatcher. It's not much, but it's the only lead he's got. He spends another hour digging, following dead links and archived forum posts. Most of it is noise, ghost stories, and paranoid rants. But buried in the static, a pattern emerges. Multiple accounts over the years describe the same figure, tall, gaunt man in a dark coat who appears before disasters. Earthquakes, fires, a bridge collapse. Witnesses who saw him always described the same thin smile, like he was watching something only he could see. Jae-won closes his laptop and rubs his eyes. This is bigger than he thought. Way bigger. His ability isn't just a random quirk of fate. It's connected to something ancient and hidden. Something with a face and a smile, and a number that can't be read. He toggles the ability on one more time and looks at his own reflection in the dark TV screen. Nothing. Still nothing. No number, no glyph, no hint of what his own clock says. He clicks it off and lies down. Sleep comes slowly, tangled with dreams of black glyphs and razor smiles and clocks that tick backward. But when morning comes, Jae-won is ready. He has a name to chase now, a thread to pull. And he's going to pull it until the whole tapestry unravels. He grabs his jacket and heads for the door. His chest still aches from yesterday's saves, a dull reminder of what he's paying. But he doesn't care about the cost anymore. He needs answers, and he knows exactly where to start looking. The construction site, the worker with 4 days left. He's going to save the man, cost or no cost. And then he's going to find Moonwatcher and get some real answers. Jae-won doesn't head straight for the construction site. First, he needs real answers, not just forum threads and ghost stories. He pulls out the business card Kang Ha-jun gave him and flips it over. On the back, in neat handwriting, is a phone number. Jae-won dials it before he can second-guess himself. The call connects on the second ring. A gruff old voice answers and asks who's calling. Jae-won introduces himself and mentions the chairman's name. There's a long pause on the other end of the line. And the voice says he's been expecting this call for a while now. He gives Jae-won an address and tells him to come alone. The call ends before Jae-won can ask a single question. He stares at his phone for a second. Guess he's going on a little field trip. The address is in a quiet neighborhood on the north side of the city. Rows of old brick apartments and tiny family-run shops line the streets. Jae-won takes the train and then walks the last 10 minutes. The building he's looking for is wedged between a laundromat and a shuttered bookstore. A faded sign above the door reads, Taeho Investigations. This is it. Jae-won climbs the narrow stairs to the second floor and knocks. The door creaks open, and a face peers out at him. Old, weathered, with sharp eyes that don't miss a thing. The man looks Jae-won up and down like he's reading a case file. Then he steps aside and waves him in. Moon Taeho is exactly what you'd expect from a retired detective. His office is cluttered with stacks of papers and old photographs. The air smells like cheap coffee and dust. A single window lets in pale morning light. Taeho gestures for Jae-won to sit in a worn armchair. He asks if Jae-won wants tea. Jae-won says he's fine. The old man shrugs and pours himself a cup. Then he sits across from Jae-won and gets straight to business. He says he knows about the ability. He knows about the numbers, the death dates, the chest pain. Jae-won's blood runs cold. He asks how Taeho knows any of that. Taeho takes a slow sip of his tea and doesn't answer right away. Then he tells Jae-won to show him what he can do. Jae-won hesitates. This old man could be anyone. But his gut says Taeho isn't a threat, so he toggles the ability on. Above Taeho's head, a number flickers into view. 4 years, 2 months, 11 days, 6 hours. A perfectly ordinary death date for a man his age. Jae-won reports what he sees. Taeho nods like he expected that answer. He says it's good to know he still has some time left. And he leans forward and looks Jae-won dead in the eye. He says that 6 months ago, Jae-won was hit by a taxi. He nearly died on the operating table. His heart stopped twice. And when he woke up, the numbers were there. Jae-won's mouth goes dry. He asks how Taeho knows about the accident. The old man sets his cup down with a soft clink. He says he knows because he's the one who gave Jae-won the ability. The room suddenly feels very small. Jae-won stares at him. Taeho doesn't blink. He says it wasn't an accident that Jae-won survived. The taxi, the near-death, the awakening. All of it was planned. Jae-won asks if Taeho is saying he caused the crash. Taeho shakes his head. He says he didn't cause it. He just made sure Jae-won wouldn't die from it. He performed a ritual in the hospital while Jae-won was on the table. An old, dangerous ritual that ties a person's soul to the flow of time itself. Jae-won wants to be angry. He should be angry. Mostly he just wants to understand. He asks why. Why pick him? Why put this burden on some random office worker? Taeho's expression softens just a fraction. He says Jae-won wasn't random. He was chosen because of what's in his bloodline. His grandmother was a shaman who could see death omens. His great-grandfather predicted the exact day of his own passing. The gift runs in the family. It just needed a trigger. Jae-won digests this in silence. The grandmother he barely remembers, the stories his mother used to tell him before she passed. It all clicks into place like tumblers in a lock. He asks what Taeho gets out of all this. The old man leans back in his chair and sighs. He says he's been fighting a war for 50 years. A war against a man who can't die. Jae-won remembers the gaunt figure on the subway platform. The black glyph where a number should be. He describes the man to Taeho. Tall frame, the dark coat, the razor-thin smile. Taeho's face goes grim. He says that man's name is Cha Kwang-soo, and he's the reason Taeho performed the ritual in the first place. The old man gets up and walks to a filing cabinet. He pulls out a worn manila folder and drops it on the desk. Inside are photographs, newspaper clippings, and handwritten notes. Photographs of Cha Kwang-soo spanning decades. The same face, the same smile, the same cold eyes. Never aging, never changing. One photo is from 1962, another from 1988, a third from a political rally just last year. In every single one, Cha looks exactly the same. Jae-won flips through the file with growing dread. He asks how it's possible. Taeho says Cha steals the remaining lifespan of anyone he kills. Every life he takes adds years to his own. He's been doing it for centuries. The old detective opens another folder and spreads out photographs of murder victims. Dozens of them, all with the same cause of death. Cardiac arrest with no prior heart condition. Their bodies found with expressions of absolute terror frozen on their faces. Taeho says Cha drains them dry. He doesn't just kill them, he consumes their remaining time. Jae-won's stomach turns. He asks why the police haven't connected the dots. Taeho gives a bitter laugh. Cha is a senior advisor to half the politicians in Seoul. He has fingers in every pie from construction to banking. Nobody touches him because nobody can. He's too powerful, too connected, and too good at covering his tracks. Taeho tried to expose him once, 30 years ago. Cha had his partner killed in a hit-and-run. The case was closed in 2 days. Jae-won looks at the photographs again. He toggles his ability on. In the photos, there are no numbers above the victims' heads, just the static faces of the dead. He asks why Taeho chose him. Why not someone with actual power, actual resources? Taeho points a bony finger at Jae-won's chest. He says Jae-won can see what Cha is. He can track him, predict his moves, find out who he's targeting, and maybe, just maybe, he can stop him. But there's a catch. There's always a catch. Taeho explains the cost in detail for the first time. Every time Jae-won changes a death, he gives up some of his own lifespan. Saving someone from a mugging costs a few hours. Pulling a woman out of traffic costs days. Stopping a murder would cost weeks or months. And Cha Kwang-soo isn't just one death. He's a machine that generates death constantly. Stopping him could cost everything Jae-won has left. Jae-won sits with that for a moment. The weight of it settles onto his shoulders like a physical thing. He asks if Taeho knows how much time he has left. Taeho shakes his head. The ritual gives the ability to see others' death dates, but the user can never see their own. It's a blind spot built into the magic itself. Jae-won already knew that. He tried looking at his reflection a dozen times. Nothing. Every single time. Taeho says there's something else he needs to see. He pulls a single photograph from his coat pocket. It's newer than the others, taken within the last year. The photo shows Cha Kwang-soo standing next to a woman in a hospital gown. The woman is young, maybe mid-20s. She has long dark hair and a fragile sort of beauty. Taeho says her name is Lee Yeon-ji. She's a lawyer who's been quietly investigating Cha for months. She doesn't know how dangerous he really is. Jae-won looks at the photo and toggles his ability. Above Yeon-ji's head, a number shimmers. 3 days, 14 hours, 22 minutes. He tells Taeho what he sees. The old man's face crumples. He says they don't have much time. Jae-won asks what happens in 3 days. Taeho slides another document across the desk. a building permit for a courthouse renovation. The same courthouse where Yeonji is scheduled to present evidence next week. Jae-won connects the dots in an instant. Cha is going to kill her. He's going to make it look like an accident. And Jae-won is the only person who can stop it. But saving her could cost him months of his own life, maybe more, depending on how elaborate Cha's plan is. Tae-ho watches Jae-won's face carefully. He says he won't force Jae-won to do anything. This fight has cost him too many people already. His partner, his informants, his hope. But Jae-won is the first real weapon he's had in 3 decades. The first person who can see the monster hiding in plain sight. Jae-won looks at the photograph of Lee Yeonji, the timer above her head ticking down to nothing. Then he looks at Tae-ho. He says he's in. No hesitation. The old man's eyes glisten for just a second. Then he nods and gets back to business. He says they need a plan. The courthouse bombing is in 3 days. They don't know how Cha will trigger it, who he'll use, or where the device will be placed. All they know is that Yeonji is the target. Jae-won will need to get close to her, warn her, earn her trust, and he'll need to do it without tipping off Cha's people. Tae-ho hands Jae-won a burner phone. He says to use this for all communication from now on. Cha has people monitoring the regular networks. One slip and they're both dead. Jae-won programs Tae-ho's number into the phone. Then he asks the question that's been eating at him. The gaunt man on the subway platform. Was that Cha? Tae-ho's expression darkens. He says Cha has enforcers, people he's bound to himself with promises of immortality. The gaunt man is one of them. His name is No Jin-hyuk, a political fixer who's been working for Cha for years. He's the one who handles the dirty work, the threats, the bribes, the bodies that need to disappear. Jae-won asks if Jin-hyuk is like Cha. Can he steal lifespans too? Tae-ho says no. Jin-hyuk is still mortal. Still has a death date, even if Jae-won couldn't read it. The black glyph is something else. Tae-ho isn't sure what it means. He's never seen it before, but it's clearly a mark of Cha's influence, something that blocks the ability from working properly. Jae-won files that away for later. Right now, he has a more immediate problem. He tells Tae-ho about the construction worker. 4 days left on the clock. He was going to try to save him today. Tae-ho asks if Jae-won is sure. Every save costs something. He can't afford to bleed himself dry before the real fight begins. Jae-won thinks about it. The worker is a stranger, just another face in the crowd. But he has a name and a life, and people who care about him. Jae-won can't just let him die, not when he knows it's coming. He tells Tae-ho he's doing it anyway. Tae-ho doesn't argue. He just nods and says Jae-won is either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both. Jae-won gets up to leave. He has a construction worker to save and a lawyer to find. The world suddenly feels a lot bigger than his cheap apartment and his notebook. Tae-ho stops him at the door. He says there's one more thing Jae-won should know. The ability isn't just a curse. It's also a trade. Every time Jae-won saves someone, the time he loses doesn't just vanish. It goes somewhere. It collects in a reservoir tied to his soul, a pool of borrowed time. Tae-ho doesn't know what happens when that pool fills up. Maybe nothing. Maybe something. The ritual is old, and the records are incomplete. Jae-won asks if there's a way to get the time back. Tae-ho hesitates. Then he says there might be, if they can destroy Cha's artifact, the thing that lets him steal lifespans. If they can shatter it, some of the stolen time might return to its original owners, including Jae-won. It's a long shot, a 1 in a million gamble. It's the only hope Jae-won has of surviving this war. Jae-won thanks him for the honesty. Then he walks out of the office and back into the morning light. His chest still aches. His head is spinning with new information. But for the first time since waking up in that hospital bed, he has a purpose. He has a target. He has a name. Cha Kwang-soo. Jae-won climbs onto his bus and stares out the window. The numbers flicker above every pedestrian and cyclist they pass. 72 years. 8 months. 41 years. A woman pushing a stroller has 63 years. The baby has 91. Jae-won watches them all scroll by. He's not just seeing strangers anymore. He's seeing people he can save. People he can protect, even if it costs him everything. The bus reaches his stop, and Jae-won gets off. He walks toward the construction site with a new kind of fire in his chest. He's got a worker to save and a courthouse bombing to stop. And somewhere out there, a woman named Lee Yeonji has less than 4 days to live. Jae-won isn't going to let that happen. Jae-won walks fast toward the construction site. His chest still hums with the ache from Tae-ho's office, but the fire in his gut is louder. He rounds the corner and there it is. A half-built high-rise, cranes swinging, concrete dust hanging in the air like fog. Workers in hard hats move through the skeleton of the structure. Jae-won flips his ability on. Numbers blink into existence above every helmet. 17 years. 22 years. 9 years. And then he sees it. A man on the 5th floor scaffolding with a timer, screaming, 4 days, 2 hours, 11 minutes. The guy is maybe 40, broad-shouldered, cheap gloves, welding mask pushed up. He's laughing at something his coworker just said. He has no idea. Jae-won walks right up to the site entrance. A foreman blocks his path and asks what he wants. Jae-won says he needs to talk to one of the welders. The foreman tells him to get lost. Guess what our boy does? He doesn't argue. He just points up at the scaffolding and says that man is going to die in 4 days. The foreman stares. Then he laughs. He says every guy on that crew is safer than a baby in a crib. Jae-won describes the worker. The welding mask. The red bandana tied around his wrist. The foreman stops laughing. He asks how Jae-won knows that. Jae-won says it doesn't matter. What matters is that sometime in the next 4 days, something goes wrong on that scaffolding. A strap snaps, a plank gives, a gust of wind hits at the wrong second, and that man falls. The foreman's face goes pale. He calls the worker down. His name is Park Dong-soo. Dong-soo climbs down the ladder looking confused. He asks if something's wrong. Foreman tells him to take the next 4 days off. Dong-soo protests. He's got a kid starting school. He needs the overtime. Jae-won speaks up. He tells Dong-soo his daughter needs a father more than she needs new shoes. Dong-soo freezes. He never mentioned a daughter. He asks who the hell Jae-won is. Jae-won doesn't answer. He just turns and walks away. 20 paces later, the chest pain hits. It's sharper this time. A hot wire pulled through his ribs. He grabs a lamppost and waits it out. 30 seconds. 40. Then it fades. No number above his own head. Just a tired-looking guy in a cheap jacket. He straightens up and keeps moving. One down. One very large problem still waiting. Lee Yeon-ji. 3 days, 14 hours and change. Jae-won spends the next morning at the library. Not because he wants to. Because he needs information before he walks into a courthouse and tells a lawyer she's marked for death. He pulls up every public record he can find on Yeon-ji. Graduated top of her class at Korea University. Passed the bar on her first attempt. Joined a small human rights firm instead of chasing corporate money. She's been working a case against a construction conglomerate for 8 months. The same conglomerate that's renovating the courthouse. Jae-won's stomach tightens. He digs deeper. The company is a subsidiary of a larger holding group. And that holding group has ties to Cha Kwang-soo. Of course it does. Everything rotten in this city connects back to the same man. Jae-won copies down the key details into his notebook. Then he pulls the burner phone from his pocket and calls Tae-ho. The old man answers on the second ring. Jae-won tells him the bombing isn't random. It's a hit disguised as a terror attack. Yeon-ji's case threatens Cha's construction interests, so Cha is going to make her disappear along with half a courthouse. Tae-ho is quiet for a moment, and he says Cha always cleans up his messes with a hammer. No scalpels. No subtlety. Maximum damage, maximum chaos. And the real target gets buried in the rubble. Jae-won asks if there's any way to stop the bomb without tipping Cha off. Tae-ho says Jae-won has 2 options. Option 1. Convince Yeon-ji to skip court that day. But if she doesn't show, Cha will just reschedule the hit. Option 2. Find the bomb before it goes off and neutralize it. But that means getting inside the courthouse and searching it without getting caught. Jae-won says that sounds impossible. Tae-ho says that's why he picked option 1. Our boy closes the notebook. He's never been good at picking the easy road. That afternoon, Jae-won posts himself outside Yeon-ji's office. It's a small building in Mapo-gu, wedged between a noodle shop and a pharmacy. He waits for 3 hours. She finally steps out at 6:15. Jae-won crosses the street and falls into step beside her. He introduces himself. She doesn't slow down. He says he has information about the courthouse bombing. She stops walking, turns, looks him up and down. She asks if he's with the police. Jae-won says no. She asks if he's a journalist. No again. She asks what he is. Jae-won says he's someone who knows she's going to die in 3 days if she walks into that courthouse. Her eyes narrow. She asks if this is a threat. He says it's a warning. She tells him to stay away from her or she'll call the cops. Then she turns on her heel and walks into the noodle shop. Jae-won watches her go. The number above her head ticks down. 3 days, 12 hours, 6 minutes. Not much time to convince a skeptic. He follows her into the restaurant, sits at the counter 2 stools away, orders a bowl of jjajangmyeon he doesn't want. Yeonji glares at him. She tells him he's either crazy or running some kind of scam. Jae-won says he can prove it. She asks how. He glances around the noodle shop. The owner has 42 years. The teenager bussing tables has 71. The old woman in the corner has 8 months and change. Jae-won points at a businessman sitting by the window. He tells Yeonji that man has a heart condition he doesn't know about. He'll have a massive coronary in 11 months. The businessman overhears. He stands up, furious, asking who the hell Jae-won thinks he is. Jae-won tells him to see a cardiologist before next summer. The man storms out. Yeonji laughs. Not a warm laugh, kind you give a street performer who just botched a trick. She asks if that's his angle. Cold readings and scare tactics. Jae-won leans closer. He lowers his voice. He tells her he knows about the Choi construction case. He knows she's been gathering testimony from whistleblowers for 8 months. He knows the trial is set for Thursday afternoon. And he knows someone very powerful wants to make sure she never walks into that courtroom. Her face changes. The amusement drains out. She asks who sent him. Jae-won says no one sent him. He came on his own. He tells her about the bombing. Not the details, not yet, just enough to make her listen. She stares at him for a long moment. Then she asks the big question. Why does he care? Why risk his neck for a stranger? Jae-won thinks about the construction worker, about the mugging victim, about the woman he yanked back from the delivery truck. He says he can see things other people can't, and he's tired of watching good people die. Yeonji doesn't laugh this time. She tells him to meet her tomorrow morning at a coffee shop near the courthouse. If he's telling the truth, she'll help him find the bomb. If he's lying, she'll have him arrested for harassment. Fair deal. Jae-won nods and leaves the noodles untouched. He sleeps maybe 4 hours that night. Dreams of numbers scrolling past like train cars. 72 years, 8 months, 3 days, 0. He wakes up with his heart punching his ribs. The next morning, he meets Yeonji at the coffee shop. She's already there. 2 cups on the table, a manila folder open in front of her. He slides 1 cup toward him. He sits. She doesn't waste time. She asks what he knows about the bombing. Jae-won tells her everything Tae-ho told him. The courthouse renovation provides cover. Cha's people have likely planted a device inside the construction zone. It'll go off during the afternoon session. Maximum casualties, maximum chaos. Her death gets lost in the noise. Yeonji listens without interrupting. When he's done, she opens the folder. Inside are building permits, renovation schedules, and a list of subcontractors. She's been doing her own digging. She points to a name on the list. A company called Songjin Electrical. They got the wiring contract for the renovation. Songjin is a shell, owned by another shell, which traces back to a holding company controlled by Cha's network. Yeonji says she found the connection 3 weeks ago. She didn't realize how dangerous it was until last night. She asks Jae-won if he's really willing to walk into that building with her. He says he's already made up his mind. She nods. Then she pulls out a visitor's pass with his photo on it. She's got connections in the courthouse administration. Jae-won asks when she got his photo. She says the coffee shop has security cameras, and she knows a guy. Our boy is impressed. And a little unsettled. The girl is resourceful. They enter the courthouse at 10 in the morning. Jae-won's ability is toggled on. Numbers float above every security guard, every clerk, every attorney rushing past. Most have decades. A few have months. One bailiff has 6 days. Jae-won makes a mental note. Maybe he can save that one too. But not today. Today, he's got one target. Yeonji leads him through the public corridors to the renovation wing. The area is blocked off with plastic sheeting and caution tape. Sign says, "Construction is in progress and entry is forbidden." She produces a key card from her pocket. She says she borrowed it from a clerk who owes her a favor. They slip through the plastic. Inside, the wing is a skeleton of exposed beams and half-finished drywall. The air smells like paint thinner and fresh sawdust. Jae-won's eyes scan everything. Not just the numbers above people, the physical space, the corners, the hollow places where a bomb might hide. They search for 40 minutes. Nothing in the main hall. Nothing in the jury assembly room. Nothing in the judge's chambers. Then Jae-won notices something odd. A section of wall near the courtroom that's already finished. Too finished. Fresh paint, perfect trim, no exposed wiring. In a building that's still mostly bare studs. He points at it. Yeonji frowns. She says that wall wasn't on the renovation schedule until next month. Jae-won walks up and presses his palm against the drywall. It's warm, slightly warm. He asks Yeonji for something to pry it open. She finds a crowbar in a toolbox nearby. Jae-won works the edge of the panel. It pops loose. Behind it is a cavity. Inside the cavity is a black case. Inside the case is a brick of C4 wired to a cell phone trigger. The timer on the phone reads 47 hours and change. Jae-won's hands go steady. He's not a bomb disposal expert. He's an office worker who sees death dates. But he doesn't need to defuse it. He just needs to make sure it doesn't go off on Thursday. He pulls out the burner phone and calls Tae-ho. Explains what they found. Tae-ho tells him to leave it and call in an anonymous tip. Let the bomb squad handle it. Jae-won asks if that'll tip Cha off. Tae-ho says Cha will know the bomb failed either way. The difference is whether Jae-won and Yeonji get caught in the middle. Jae-won looks at Yeonji. She's not scared. She's furious. The kind of fury that burns cold and clean. She asks if they can trace the bomb back to Cha. Tae-ho says it's possible, but they'd need to get the explosives analyzed before the police take custody, and that means pulling the bomb out of the wall right now. Tae-won doesn't hesitate. He tells Tae-ho they're doing it. Tae-ho sighs and gives him an address. A retired forensic tech who owes Tae-ho a favor. Jae-won memorizes it and hangs up. He and Yeonji carefully extract the black case from the wall. They wrap it in a plastic tarp from the construction supplies. Then they walk out of the courthouse like they're just two lawyers carrying a box of case files. Jae-won's heart is a drum. His ability is still toggled on. Numbers flicker past. A janitor with 33 years. A reporter with 2 weeks. He can't save everyone. He has to remind himself of that. He can't save everyone. They reach Yeonji's car and drive to the address Tae-ho gave them. The forensic tech is a chain-smoking old woman named Mrs. An. She takes one look at the black case and bursts out laughing. She says she hasn't handled C4 since the crackdown on student radicals in the 80s. But her hands are steady and her eyes are sharp. She opens the case and starts examining the trigger mechanism. Yeonji watches from the corner, arms crossed. Jae-won watches the door. Mrs. An works in silence for about 20 minutes. Then she whistles. She says this is military grade. Whoever built this knew what they were doing. She finds a serial number on the detonator. A batch code that traces back to a depot in Pyeongtaek. Jae-won writes it down. Mrs. An says she can't defuse it safely here. But she can give them a report that'll hold up in court. Chain of custody, photographs, chemical analysis, the whole package. Yeonji asks how long that'll take. Mrs. An says 2 days. That cuts it close, but it's better than nothing. Jae-won thanks her and promises Tae-ho will cover her fee. She waves him off and says she doesn't take money from dead men walking. He doesn't ask what she means by that. He's not sure he wants to know. By the time they leave Mrs. An's apartment, it's almost midnight. Yeonji drives Jae-won back to his place. She doesn't talk much, but when she pulls up outside his building, she turns to him. She says she was wrong about him. He's not crazy. He's not a scammer. He's something else. She's not sure what. But she's grateful. Jae-won tells her to stay somewhere safe until Thursday passes. A hotel. A friend's place. Anywhere that isn't her apartment. She says she'll think about it. Then she hands him her card. A real card, not a burner. She says if he needs legal help, call her. No charge. Jae-won takes it. He watches her taillights disappear down the street. The ache in his chest flares again, sharper than before. Saving the construction worker cost him days. Pulling that bomb out of the courthouse wall probably cost him weeks. He doesn't regret it, but the math is getting ugly. He climbs the stairs to his apartment, collapses onto his mattress, toggles the ability off. The darkness behind his eyelids is a relief. One bomb found, one lawyer saved. One very angry, immortal man about to realize someone is hunting him. And somewhere out there, No Jin-hyuk is already making calls. No Jin-hyuk kneels on a silk cushion in Cha Kwang-soo's private study. The room smells like sandalwood and old money. Cha doesn't look up from his tea. He asks Jin-hyuk if he has news about the courthouse renovation. Jin-hyuk's jaw tightens. He says the bomb is gone. Cha's hand pauses on the teacup. Just a beat. Then he takes a sip and sets the cup down with a soft click. He asks Jin-hyuk to repeat that. Jin-hyuk says their man checked the wall cavity an hour ago. Empty. No C4, no trigger, no case. The drywall was pried open clean, and the panel was set back in place. Someone knew exactly where to look. Cha's eyes are very calm. That's the scary thing about him. He never raises his voice when he's angry. He asks who knew about the placement. Jin-hyuk says only 3 people. Builder, the electrician, and himself. The builder is dead. The electrician is in a safe house outside Incheon, with 2 of Jin-hyuk's men watching him, which leaves Jin-hyuk. Cha looks at him for a long moment. Then he says he doesn't think Jin-hyuk betrayed him. Jin-hyuk exhales. Cha says that means someone else found the bomb. Someone who shouldn't have known it existed. He asks if the lawyer is still alive. Jin-hyuk nods. Lee Yeon-ji showed up to her office this morning like nothing happened. Cha pours himself more tea. He says interesting. Then he asks Jin-hyuk to pull the courthouse security footage from the last 48 hours. Jin-hyuk already did. He hands Cha a tablet. The footage shows a man in a visitor's badge walking with Yeon-ji. Tall, late 20s, dark hair, cheap jacket. They enter the renovation wing together. They leave 40 minutes later carrying a wrapped package. Cha freezes the frame on the man's face. He stares at it. Then he laughs. Not a warm laugh, the kind of laugh a wolf makes before it bites. He says the boy has the sight. Jin-hyuk blinks. He asks what that means. Cha leans back in his chair. He says there's an old bloodline in Korea. Shamans, mostly women, who could see things normal people couldn't. Death omens, spirit marks, the exact hour a soul would leave its body. He thought he'd stamped them all out a century ago. Apparently, he missed one. Jin-hyuk asks if this kid is a threat. Cha says every shaman who ever crossed him is dead. This one just doesn't know it yet. He tells Jin-hyuk to find the boy. Name, address, family, friends, everything. And once Jin-hyuk has it all, he is to make the problem disappear. Cleanly. No courthouse bombs, no spectacle. Just a quiet accident somewhere no one will look. Jin-hyuk nods and rises to leave. Cha stops him at the door. He says there's one more thing. If the boy has already touched the lawyer, she's compromised too. Jin-hyuk asks if he should handle her as well. Cha considers it. Then he says no, not yet. He wants to see what the boy does next. A shaman who intervenes in fate pays a price. Every save costs lifespan. Every death changed burns a little more of the candle. Cha wants to know how much this boy is willing to burn. He says let him run. Let him play hero. Let him spend himself down to nothing. And when he's weak and gasping and out of time, that's when Cha will take the rest. Jin-hyuk bows and leaves. The door clicks shut. Cha picks up his teacup and looks at the frozen image on the tablet. A 20-something office worker who sees death dates. He smiles. Just a kid with a borrowed gift and no idea what it costs. Cha has been collecting borrowed time for centuries. He can wait a little longer. No, Jin-hyuk is very good at finding people. It's what Cha pays him for. By noon the next day, he has a name. Seo Jae-won, 28 years old, former mid-level manager at a logistics firm. Quit his job 3 weeks ago after a taxi accident put him in the hospital. No criminal record, no political affiliations, no obvious connection to Lee Yeon-ji or any of Cha's operations. Jin-hyuk digs deeper. He pulls Jae-won's medical records from the hospital. The nurse who treated him collapsed from a sudden stroke the same day he was discharged. Jin-hyuk circles that detail. He pulls the police report on a mugging that got weird. The victim said a stranger threatened the mugger with something that made him run. Description matches Jae-won. Then there's the businessman in Gangnam. Choked on a piece of steak at a restaurant. Would have died if a young man at the next table hadn't performed the Heimlich. Witnesses said the kid was already moving before the businessman started choking. Like he knew it was coming. Jin-hyuk puts the file together and feels something cold settle in his stomach. The kid's been busy. Real busy. Every save is another chunk of his own life burned away. Jin-hyuk calls Cha and delivers the report. Cha listens in silence. Then he gives the order. Move tonight. Jin-hyuk hangs up and starts making calls of his own. 2 men he trusts with wet work. A sedan with stolen plates. A route mapped past Jae-won's apartment, past the Han River, out to a construction site where the foundation is still being poured. No body, no crime. That's the plan. Jae-won doesn't know any of this. He's sitting in his apartment at 10 o'clock at night with an ice pack pressed to his chest. Pain from the courthouse extraction hasn't faded. It's been almost a full day. His ribs ache like he's been kicked by a horse. He toggles the ability on and off a few times just to make sure it still works. It does. The numbers flicker past his window. A neighbor with 51 years. A dog walker with 12. A kid on a bicycle with 73. He toggles it off. The dark comes back. He pulls out his notebook and writes a new entry under the section labeled Costs. Pulling someone from traffic costs days. Stopping a premeditated murder costs weeks. Extracting a bomb meant to kill 50 people plus the target probably cost months. He doesn't know the exact numbers. He can't see his own timer, but he can feel it. Like a weight getting lighter somewhere inside his chest. He closes the notebook and lies down on his mattress. The ceiling stain looks bigger tonight. Or maybe he's just noticing it more. His burner phone buzzes. It's Taeho. Taeho says Mrs. An finished the report. Full chemical analysis, chain of custody, batch codes. The detonator traces back to a military depot that Cha Kwang-soo's construction company had access to. It's enough to open an investigation, not enough to convict, but enough to make noise. Jae-won asks if Yeonji is safe. Taeho says she's staying at a hotel under a false name, like Jae-won told her to. She'll be in court Thursday morning. The bomb is neutralized. The lawyer is protected. The evidence is in motion. Jae-won did good. Taeho pauses. Then he says there's something else. Cha Kwang-soo knows the bomb was extracted. Jin-hyuk pulled the courthouse security footage. Jae-won's face is on it. Jae-won sits up. The ice pack falls off his chest. He asks how bad that is. Taeho says it's as bad as it gets. Cha doesn't tolerate loose ends. A man who can see death dates and has a personal grudge against a lifespan thief is the loosest end imaginable. Taeho tells Jae-won to leave his apartment. Tonight. Pack a bag and go somewhere with a lot of people and good security. Jae-won asks if Taeho has somewhere in mind. Taeho says he does. There's a woman who needs a bodyguard. Jae-won almost laughs. He's an office worker with a magic eyeball and a ribcage that feels like broken glass. He's not a bodyguard. Taeho says the woman is Oh Hye-ri, the O Group heiress. She's been getting death threats for 2 weeks, and the police haven't found anything. Her father is in the hospital for a routine procedure tomorrow. She thinks someone is going to try to kill him. Jae-won asks why Taeho is telling him this. Taeho says because Hye-ri is rich and paranoid, and she pays well. And her family owns a building with 24-hour security and bulletproof windows. It's the safest place in Seoul for a man Cha Kwang-soo wants dead. Jae-won stares at the ceiling stain. Then he asks for the address. He packs a bag in 5 minutes. Clothes, notebook, burner phone, the card Yeonji gave him. He's halfway down the stairs when he hears a car idling outside. Not a normal car. A sedan with the engine running and the lights off. Jae-won freezes. He toggles the ability on. Through the stairwell window, he sees 2 men in the sedan. Their numbers are low. Really low. One has 3 hours. The other has 6. Jae-won doesn't know what's going to kill them tonight, but he knows they're here for him. He turns around and takes the back exit through the basement. The sedan doesn't follow, not yet. Jae-won walks fast and keeps to the shadows. Every few steps he toggles the ability on and scans ahead. More numbers, more people. None of them threats. He reaches a busy street and hails a taxi. Gives the driver the address Taeho sent him. The taxi pulls away. Jae-won watches out the rear window. No sedan. He exhales. The chest pain is worse now. Sharp little stabs every time his heart beats. He doesn't know how much time he has left. A year, maybe less. But he's not going to spend it hiding. Cha Kwang-soo wants him dead. Fine, let him try. Oh Hye-ri's building is a glass tower in the middle of Gangnam. 40 floors of money and marble. The security guard at the front desk takes one look at Jae-won's cheap jacket and almost turns him away. Then Jae-won says Oh Hye-ri is expecting him. The guard makes a call. 60 seconds later, the elevator opens and Oh Hye-ri steps out. She's sharp. Designer clothes, perfect posture, eyes that miss nothing. She looks Jae-won up and down like he's a stain on her lobby floor. She asks if he's the bodyguard Taeho sent. Jae-won says he's the consultant. Hye-ri snorts. She says he doesn't look like much of a consultant either. Jae-won doesn't argue. He's too tired and his chest hurts too much. He asks if she wants his help or not. Hye-ri stares at him for a long moment. Then she turns and walks back toward the elevator. She tells him to keep up. The penthouse is absurd. Floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that costs more than Jae-won's entire apartment building. A view of the city that stretches to the mountains. Hye-ri pours herself a glass of wine and doesn't offer Jae-won one. She says her father is having a minor heart procedure tomorrow at Samsung Medical Center. Routine, low risk, should take about 3 hours. But she's received 3 letters in the last 2 weeks, telling her he won't survive the surgery. The letters are typed, no fingerprints, no return address, mailed from 3 different post offices. The police opened a file and closed it the same day. Hae-ri doesn't trust the police. She doesn't trust anyone. She asks if Jae-won can really do what Tae-ho says he can. Jae-won toggles the ability on. He looks at Hae-ri. Above her head, the numbers read 47 years, 2 months, 11 days, and change. He tells her she's not dying anytime soon. Hae-ri asks what that means. Jae-won says it means the threats are probably aimed at her father, not her. He asks if he can see her father. Hae-ri takes him to the hospital the next morning. Mr. Oh is a thin man with a sharp smile and kind eyes. He's already in the pre-op room when they arrive. Above Mr. Oh's head, the numbers read 0 years, 0 months, 3 days, 14 hours. Jae-won's stomach drops. That's not the surgery. That's something after the surgery. He asks Hae-ri what happens after the procedure. She says her father is supposed to rest for 2 days, then attend a board meeting on Monday. Jae-won asks what the board meeting is about. Hae-ri frowns. She says it's a vote to approve a merger with a construction conglomerate. Jae-won's blood goes cold. He asks which construction conglomerate. Hae-ri says it's a subsidiary of Kwangsu Enterprises. The pieces click together like a loaded magazine sliding into place. Cha Kwangsu isn't just trying to kill a lawyer, he's trying to take over the O Group. Mr. Oh's death would stall the merger vote. The board would split. Cha would have an opening to force his own people into the company. And Oh Hae-ri, the heiress who might fight back, would be left alone and vulnerable. Jae-won tells Hae-ri her father isn't dying during the surgery. He's dying 3 days later, at the board meeting. Hae-ri's face goes pale. She asks how he knows that. Jae-won doesn't answer. He's already pulling out his burner phone and calling Tae-ho. Tae-ho picks up on the second ring. Jae-won explains the situation. Mr. Oh has 3 days. The board meeting is a trap. Cha Kwang-soo is behind the merger push and the death threats. Tae-ho listens without interrupting. When Jae-won finishes, Tae-ho says one word: poison. Jae-won asks him to explain. Tae-ho says if Mr. Oh dies after the surgery, not during, the method has to be something that won't show up on a routine autopsy, something that looks like a heart complication, a drug administered during recovery, or at the board meeting itself. Jae-won looks at Hae-ri. He tells her someone on the hospital staff or someone on the board is working for Cha. Hae-ri's hands are shaking, but her voice is steady. He asks what they do. Jae-won thinks fast. He can't watch Mr. Oh every second for 3 days. He can't be in the recovery room and the boardroom and everywhere else. But he can see the numbers. And if the numbers change, he'll know the threat has moved. He tells Hae-ri to hire a private nursing team for her father. No hospital staff. Nobody she doesn't personally vet. And for the board meeting, she needs to put Jae-won in the room. As a consultant. Hae-ri asks if that will work. Jae-won says it has to. Because if Mr. Oh dies, Cha gets a foot in the door of the biggest conglomerate in Seoul. And the man who can see death dates won't be able to stop him. Hae-ri looks at him for a long moment. Then she nods. He says she'll make the arrangements. Jae-won spends the next 2 days living in the O Group's penthouse guest room. It's nicer than any hotel he's ever stayed in. But he barely sleeps. He keeps the ability toggled on too long. Scans every nurse, every doctor, every visitor who comes near Mr. Oh's recovery room. The numbers blur together. His head aches. His chest aches. Everything aches. But Mr. Oh's timer stays steady at 3 days. No change. No fluctuation. The surgery goes fine. The private nursing team Hae-ri hired is clean. 2 days pass without incident. Jae-won starts to wonder if he misread something. Then Monday morning arrives. The board meeting is in a conference room on the top floor of the O Group Tower. 23 board members, 3 executive assistants, and Jae-won, standing in the corner like a piece of furniture. Hae-ri sits beside her father, who looks tired but alert. The merger proposal is the 3rd item on the agenda. Jae-won watches the room. He toggles the ability on and off in quick bursts. Scan a face, read a number, move to the next. Most of the board has decades. A few have months or years. Then he looks at one of the executive assistants, a young woman with a polite smile and a coffee carafe. Above her head, the numbers read 0 years, 0 months, 0 days, 5 hours. Jae-won's heart stops. She's not the target. She's the weapon. He watches her pour coffee for the board members. She reaches Mr. Oh. She fills his cup. Jae-won moves. He crosses the room in 5 steps and puts his hand over the cup before Mr. Oh can lift it. The room goes silent. Hae-ri stares at him. Mr. Oh stares at him. The assistant stares at him with a smile that's suddenly a little too wide. Jae-won says the coffee is cold. He'll get a fresh pot. The assistant says she just brewed it. Jae-won looks her in the eye. He tells her to drink it herself then. Her smile cracks. Just a little. Just for a second. Then she sets the carafe down very carefully and walks toward the door. Jae-won tells security to stop her. They hesitate. Iri doesn't. She's already on her feet, already blocking the door, already staring the assistant down like she's been waiting her whole life for someone to try something in her building. The assistant runs. Haeri trips her with a chair. Jae-won is on her before she hits the ground. He pins her wrists and asks who sent her. She doesn't answer, but her eyes flicker toward the window, toward the city, toward Cha Kwang-soo's tower on the other side of the river. Jae-won doesn't need her to talk. He already knows. The police arrive 20 minutes later. They find a vial of digoxin in the assistant's pocket, a heart medication that, in the wrong dose, causes cardiac arrest indistinguishable from natural causes. Mr. O would have been dead by the end of the meeting. The assistant's timer drops to 4 hours, then 3, then 2. Jae-won watches the numbers tick down and feels the chest pain flare hot and sharp. He just saved a man's life. That's going to cost him. He doesn't know how much, but as he stands in the O Group conference room with police swarming around him and Haeri staring at him like he's something she can't categorize, Jae-won realizes the math has changed. Cha Kwang-soo isn't just a threat to a lawyer or a businessman. He's trying to eat the whole city, and Jae-won just declared war on him twice in 1 week. The bomb wasn't enough. The poison wasn't enough. Cha is going to escalate. Jae-won needs allies. Real ones. People with resources and power and reasons to fight back. He looks at Haeri. She looks back at him. She says she doesn't know what he is, but she knows she owes him her father's life. She asks what he needs. Jae-won tells her he needs her to trust him, because things are about to get a lot worse. Haeri doesn't hesitate. She says done. Somewhere across the river, in a study that smells like sandalwood and old blood, Cha Kwang-soo gets a phone call. The poison failed. The assistant is in custody. Mr. O is alive. And the boy who sees death dates is standing in the middle of O Group's tower with the heiress at his side. Cha hangs up the phone. He doesn't throw it. He doesn't shout. He just sits very still for a very long time. Then he calls No Jin-hyuk. He says the boy is no longer a loose end. He's a problem. And problems need to be eliminated. No more quiet accidents. No more subtlety. He tells Jin-hyuk to put a team together. Find the boy. Corner him. And when they have him alone, Cha wants to be there. He wants to watch the light go out of those eyes himself. Jin-hyuk asks when. Cha says tonight. Jae-won doesn't know that yet. He's standing in a glass tower on the other side of the city with an heiress who just became his ally, and a chest that feels like it's full of broken glass. He toggles the ability on one more time. Looks out the window at the city below. Millions of people. Millions of timers. And somewhere out there, a man with no timer at all is making his move. Jae-won's own clock is ticking. He can't see the number. Less than a year now. Maybe a lot less. He doesn't regret it. Not 1 second. He closes his eyes and toggles the ability off. When he opens them again, Haeri is holding out a cup of coffee. Fresh pot. She says he looks like he needs it. Jae-won takes the cup. It's warm in his hands. Outside the window, the sun is setting over Seoul. Somewhere out there, Cha Kwang-soo is gathering his forces. Tonight, in this tower, Jae-won has his first real ally. And he's going to need every single one he can get. Soo-ah is in the lobby of O Group Tower before the coffee in the boardroom has even cooled. She flashes her badge at the front desk. The receptionist calls up to Haeri's floor. 3 minutes later, Jae-won steps out of the elevator with Haeri at his side. Soo-ah takes one look at him and pulls out the handcuffs. She says he's under arrest for the courthouse fire alarm stunt. Haeri steps forward and asks if the detective has a warrant. Soo-ah pulls a folded paper from her jacket and holds it up. She's got one. Tae-won doesn't fight it. He turns to Haeri and tells her to call Tae-ho. Let him know what happened. Then he holds out his wrists. Soo-ah cuffs him and walks him out the front door. A patrol car is waiting at the curb. She puts him in the back seat and slides in beside him. The whole ride to the station, she doesn't say a word. She just stares at him like he's a puzzle she can't solve. Jae-won toggles the ability on for a second. Her timer reads 47 years, 2 months, 9 days. She's not in danger. He toggles it off and leans his head back against the seat. The chest pain is still there from the poison save. A dull ache that won't quite fade. At the station, they book him. Fingerprints, mugshot, the whole routine. Soo-ah watches every step from the corner of the room. When they're done, she takes him to an interrogation room. No window, just a metal table and 2 chairs. She sits across from him and slaps a file on the table. She says the courthouse security footage shows him pulling the alarm. She wants to know why. Jae-won asks if she'd believe him if he told her the truth. She leans back and crosses her arms. Says she's got all night. Jae-won tells her there was a bomb in the courthouse. 47 hours on the timer. Military-grade C4 hidden in a renovation wall. Soo-ah's expression doesn't change. She asks where the bomb is now. Jae-won says it's with someone who knows how to handle it. A person he trusts. Soo-ah asks for a name. He gives her Taeho's. She writes it down and leaves the room. Jae-won sits alone for 40 minutes. He toggles the ability on and stares at the wall. Can't see anyone through concrete. Toggles it off. Soo-ah comes back with a phone pressed to her ear. She hangs up and sits down. Says she called Moon Tae-ho. The old detective confirmed everything. The bomb, the courthouse, the whole story. Soo-ah says she still doesn't understand how Jae-won knew it was there. He asks if she really wants to know. She nods. He tells her he can see how long people have left to live. Soo-ah stares at him for 5 full seconds. Then she laughs. She says that's the worst lie she's ever heard. Jae-won shrugs. He tells her to test him. She asks how. He says to take him somewhere with people he's never met. Let him prove it. Soo-ah considers this for a moment. Then she stands up and uncuffs him from the table. She says if he's lying, she'll add obstruction to the charges. Jae-won says, fair enough. She walks him out of the interrogation room and into the main holding area. The drunk tank is full tonight. Half a dozen men in various states of regret. Numbers float above every head. He points to a guy in the corner with a split lip, says that man has 14 hours left. Soo-ah looks at the guy. He's young, maybe 25. Looks healthy except for the bruise. She asks what's supposed to happen. Jae-won says he doesn't know the cause, only the number. Soo-ah writes it down anyway. She points to another man, older, gray hair, sleeping on a bench. Jae-won reads his timer. 62 years, 4 months, 11 days. She asks about a third guy, 41 years even. She keeps pointing and he keeps reading. Every single number, clear as a billboard. Soo-ah stops after the 8th one. Her hand is shaking a little. She asks if he's ever wrong. Jae-won says not yet. She asks if he can see his own number. He says no. She asks what it costs him. He hesitates. Then he tells her the truth. Every life he saves, every death he changes, it takes time off his own clock. Soo-ah's eyes go wide. She asks how much he's got left. Jae-won says maybe a year. Maybe less. Soo-ah puts her notebook away. She doesn't write that part down. She just looks at him for a long moment. Then she says she believes him. And just like that, Jae-won has his second ally. They release him an hour later. Soo-ah signs the paperwork herself. She escorts him out the front door of the station and stops on the steps. She asks what he's going to do next. Jae-won says Cha Kwang-soo is still out there, still stealing lives, still trying to bury anyone who gets in his way. Soo-ah asks if he's got a plan. He says he's working on it. She pulls out her phone and gives him her number. She says if he needs backup, she's in. A police detective offering to help a civilian break the law. That's how bad things have gotten. Jae-won takes the number and saves it in his burner phone. He thanks her. She says don't thank her yet. They haven't caught anyone. 2 days pass. Jae-won stays at Hyri's penthouse. The hit squad at his apartment never returns. Cha must have pulled them back after the boardroom failed. Or maybe he's regrouping. Either way, the clock is ticking. Jae-won's chest still aches every time he pushes the ability. He's started timing the pain now. 20 seconds after changing a death. Sometimes 30. It's getting longer. Tae-ho calls on the second morning. He's got intel from an old contact in the trafficking unit. No Jin-hyuk has been seen near a warehouse in Guru Industrial District. Lots of shipping containers. Neighbors have complained about trucks coming at odd hours. Women's voices heard inside. Tae-ho says it's a pipeline. Cha's people are moving victims through that warehouse. If they hit it tonight, they might catch Jin-hyuk there. Jae-won calls Soo-ah. She picks up on the first ring. He tells her about the warehouse. She asks if he's sure. He says the source is solid. Soo-ah says she'll meet him there at 10. That night, Jae-won takes a taxi to Guru. He wears dark clothes and a baseball cap pulled low. The warehouse is a rusted metal box with a single light above the loading bay. Sua is already there when he arrives. She's ditched the uniform for tactical gear. Kevlar vest, flashlight, sidearm. She looks like she's done this before. Jae-won asks how many inside. Sua says her intel puts it at 6 guards minimum. Maybe more if Jin Hyuk's squad is there. He scans the warehouse through a grimy window. 5 men on the ground floor. Timers floating above their heads. 3 hours. 11 years. 7 days. 2 months. 4 years. Tells Sua the numbers. She asks if any of them are the victims. He shakes his head. The victims are in the back. He can't see them from here. Sua unholsters her weapon. She asks if he's armed. Jae-won pulls a taser from his jacket. Hae-ri's security team lent it to him. It's not much. Sua nods. They move toward the side entrance. A guard is smoking near the door. Timer reads 3 hours. Jae-won taps Sua's shoulder and points at the guy. She understands. She circles around and comes up behind him. 2 seconds later, the guard is on the ground. Out cold. Jae-won grabs the guy's keycard. They slip inside. The warehouse is dark, except for a row of flickering fluorescent lights. Shipping containers line the walls. At the far end, a makeshift cage. Inside it, 6 women huddled together. Their timers are all over the place. Some have decades. One has 9 hours. Jae-won's chest tightens. He knows what that means. They don't have long. Sua signals toward the guards. 2 of them are playing cards at a folding table. Another is patrolling near the containers. The last 2 are somewhere deeper in the warehouse. Jae-won and Sua move in. Sua takes the card players. She steps out of the shadows with her weapon raised and tells them to freeze. They freeze. Jae-won moves toward the cage while she zip-ties the guards. He's halfway there when a door slams open. No Jin Hyuk steps out. He's got 3 men with him, all of them armed. Jin Hyuk sees Jae-won and smiles. He says he was wondering when the boy with the sight would show up. Jae-won doesn't waste time talking. He ducks behind a container as the first shots ring out. Sua returns fire from behind a forklift. The warehouse erupts into chaos. Bullets ping off metal. The women in the cage scream and press themselves against the bars. He peers around the edge of the container. Jin Hyuk's timer is still that same black glyph, unreadable, but his men have numbers. 2 hours, 4 hours, 12 minutes. The one with 12 minutes charges toward the cage. Jae-won doesn't think. He just moves. He tackles the guy from the side, and they both crash into a stack of pallets. The taser connects with the man's neck. He goes rigid and drops. Jae-won grabs the man's gun and tosses it towards Sua. She catches it mid-stride. Now she's got 2 weapons and a whole lot of rage. She lays down covering fire while Jae-won reaches the cage. He tells the women they're getting out. Right now, one of them, the one with 9 hours, grabs his arm. She asks if he's real. Jae-won says he's real, and he's going to make sure she sees tomorrow. He pries the cage lock open with a crowbar from the floor. The women scramble out. Jae-won points toward the side exit, tells them to run and not look back. They run. Jin Hyuk shouts orders to his men, but Sua is already on them. She takes down 2 more guards with shots to the legs. Clean, precise, textbook police work. The last guard throws down his weapon and surrenders. Jin Hyuk stands alone in the center of the warehouse. He's not running. Jae-won steps out from behind the container. Jin Hyuk says Cha was right about him. The boy really does have the sight. Jae-won asks if that's supposed to scare him. Jin Hyuk says it should, because Cha Kwang-soo has been alive for 300 years, and he's never lost. Jae-won says there's a first time for everything. Jin Hyuk pulls something from his pocket, a small black vial. He smashes it on the ground. Smoke explodes outward. By the time it clears, Jin Hyuk is gone. Sua curses and kicks a crate. She says he had an escape route. Jae-won isn't surprised. Guys like Jin Hyuk always have an escape route. The important thing is, the women are safe. Outside, sirens wail. Sua called for backup before they went in. The cavalry arrives 5 minutes later. Police swarm the warehouse. Medics check on the victims. The woman with 9 hours left gets into an ambulance. Her timer ticks up to 31 years. Jae-won watches it happen and feels the chest pain spike. Sharp and hot, and longer than before. 45 seconds this time. He leans against a police cruiser and breathes through it. Sua finds him there. She asks if he's okay. He says he's fine. She doesn't believe him. She says she saw what he did in there. The way he ran toward the gunfire. The way he tore that cage open. She says he's either the bravest person she's ever met or the dumbest. Jae-won laughs. It hurts. He says maybe a little of both. Seo looks at him for a long moment. Then she does something he doesn't expect. She reaches out and squeezes his hand. She says she's glad he called her. Jae-won squeezes back. He says he's glad she answered. And just like that, the romantic tension ratchets up another notch. Detective Bae Soo-ah, the hard-edged cop who arrested him 2 days ago, is looking at him like he's something more than a suspect, something more than an ally. Jae-won doesn't have time to unpack that right now. But he files it away, because if he's going to take down Cha Kwang-soo, he's going to need every connection he can get, even the ones that make his chest ache in a completely different way. Back at Hairi's penthouse that night, Jae-won collapses onto the couch. Hairi brings him a glass of water and asks how it went, about Jin-hyuk's escape, about the women they saved. Hairi sits beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touch. She says he's doing a lot of good. Jae-won says it doesn't feel like enough. Cha is still out there, still untouchable. Hairi says maybe not for long. She pulls out her tablet and shows him a news article. The police raid on the warehouse is already making headlines. And buried in the article is a name. A shell company, traced back to Cha Kwang-soo's network. The public is starting to connect the dots. Jae-won says it's a start. Hairi says it's more than that. It's a crack in the armor. And cracks can be widened. She looks at him with those sharp, determined eyes. She says they're going to bring Cha down. Together. Jae-won believes her. He's got a cop on his side. An heiress with resources. A lawyer with evidence. 3 women who should have nothing in common. All of them drawn into his orbit. All of them fighting for him. He doesn't know what he did to deserve that. But he's not going to waste it. The chest pain is still there, a constant reminder that his clock is running. Tonight, in this penthouse with the city lights spread out below, Jae-won lets himself feel something he hasn't felt in weeks. Hope. It's fragile. It's small. But it's there. And it's enough. 2 days later, Jae-won gets a call from an unknown number. He answers, and a voice like old leather says his name, Seo Jae-won. Our boy freezes in the middle of Hairi's living room. It's Cha Kwang-soo. The 300-year-old monster himself is calling his personal phone. Jae-won asks how he got this number. Cha laughs and says he's been watching the boy for weeks now. He compliments the warehouse raid. Very impressive, he says. Very heroic. Jae-won's grip tightens on the phone. He asks what Cha wants. Cha says he wants to have a conversation, face to face. No tricks. No weapons. Just 2 men who understand the weight of time. Jae-won says that sounds exactly like a trap. Cha says of course it's a trap, but not the kind Jae-won is thinking of. He gives an address. A tea house in Insadong. 1 hour. Come alone or don't come at all. The line goes dead. Jae-won stands there with the phone pressed to his ear. His heart is hammering. Hairi walks in and sees his face. She asks what happened. He tells her Cha Kwang-soo just invited him to tea. She says absolutely not. No way. She's calling security right now. Jae-won puts his hand on her arm and says he has to go. She stares at him like he's lost his mind. He says Cha could have killed him a dozen times already. If the old man wanted him dead, he wouldn't call first. This is something else. Hairi says that's not reassuring. Jae-won says he knows. He grabs his jacket anyway. She follows him to the elevator. She's angry and scared and trying very hard not to show either. She says if he gets himself killed, she'll never forgive him. He steps into the elevator and says he'll be back before dinner. The doors close on her worried face. Tea house sits at the end of a narrow alley in Insadong. Old wooden beams and paper lanterns. The kind of place that's been there for a century and will be there for another. Jae-won walks in, and the hostess bows without asking his name. She leads him to a private room in the back. Cha Kwang-soo is already seated. He looks exactly like his photographs, maybe mid-50s. Silver hair combed back. A face that's seen things no living person should have seen. He's pouring tea into 2 cups. He gestures for Jae-won to sit. Our boy sits. Cha slides a cup across the table. Jae-won doesn't touch it. Cha smiles and says the boy is wise. But if he wanted to poison him, he wouldn't use the tea. He'd use something far more creative. He looks at Cha's head. Where a death number should be, there's nothing. Just empty space. Like staring into a void. Cha notices and his smile widens. He says the boy is checking his expiration date. How disappointing that must be. Jae-won says he's seen stranger things. Cha takes a sip of his tea. He says he knows about the grandmother. the shaman bloodline, the ability to see the exact hour a soul leaves its body. He says he's met others like Jae-won before. Many others. Over many centuries. Jae-won's jaw tightens. He asks what happened to them. Cha says they all made the same mistake. They thought they could change fate without paying the price. Our boy says he knows the price. He's been paying it. Cha leans forward. He says the boy has maybe a year left. Maybe less. The chest pain is getting worse, isn't it? Longer each time. Sharper. Jae-won doesn't answer. He doesn't have to. Cha already knows. The old man says that's the tragedy of the sight. Every save costs a piece of the saver. Every life pulled back from the edge takes a chunk of the rescuer's own. He says Jae-won has been very busy these past few weeks. The mugger. The businessman. The woman at the crosswalk. The construction worker. The lawyer. The courthouse bomb. 6 women in a warehouse. Cha counts them off on his fingers like a shopping list. He says each one shaved weeks off Jae-won's clock. Maybe months. The courthouse bomb alone probably cost him half a year. Jae-won says it was worth it. Cha nods slowly. He says that's what all the others said too. Right before they died. The room feels colder now. Jae-won asks why Cha is telling him this. Why not just let him burn himself out? Cha refills his own cup. He says because the boy is useful. More useful than any of the others ever were. He's smart. Resourceful. He's built connections Cha can only dream of. A police detective. A corporate heiress. A lawyer with a conscience. 3 women who would walk into fire for him. Cha says he's been trying to build that kind of loyalty for 300 years. He's never managed it. Jae-won says maybe that's because he kills people instead of saving them. Cha laughs. A real laugh. He says the boy has spirit. He likes that. He says he has a proposition. Jae-won says he's not interested. Cha says he should hear it anyway. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out a small glass vial. Inside, something golden swirls, like liquid sunlight. Cha sets it on the table between them. He says this is 10 years. Jae-won stares at the vial. Cha explains that when he takes a life, he doesn't just take the remaining years. He takes everything. The memories, the skills, the loves, hatreds. All of it compressed into something he can absorb. But sometimes he bottles it instead, for special occasions. He says this vial contains 10 years of pure lifespan, taken from a man who tried to betray him in 1987. Jae-won feels sick. Cha says all the boy has to do is stop. Stop investigating. Stop saving people. Stop building his little team of loyal women. Walk away and live a quiet life somewhere far from Seoul. And in return, Cha gives him the vial. 10 more years. No strings attached. No tricks. Our boy looks at the golden liquid. 10 years. He could see his 30s. Maybe his 40s. He could have a life. A real one. He thinks about Harry's worried face in the elevator. Soo-ah's hand squeezing his. Yeonji's voice saying she believes him. He thinks about what they'd say if he took this deal. He already knows. He pushes the vial back across the table. Cha's smile doesn't falter. He says he expected that, but he wanted to give the boy the option. Jae-won stands up. He says the conversation is over. Cha says one more thing. He pulls out his phone and shows Jae-won a photograph. It's Senator Park Min-joon, chair of the Assembly's Justice Committee, the one honest politician left in the building. Cha says the senator has been a thorn in his side for years, always pushing for investigations, always blocking the right bills. He's decided it's time for the senator to retire. Permanently. He says in 3 days, Senator Park will die in a hit-and-run accident. Very tragic. Very sudden. A drunk driver with no priors and a clean record. The driver will be devastated. He'll serve 2 years. He'll get out early for good behavior. And Senator Park will be a footnote in the evening news. Cha puts the phone away. He says unless, of course, someone warns the senator. Someone with the sight. Someone who can see the timer ticking down above his head. He looks directly at Jae-won. He says the boy saves the senator. He loses more of his own clock. Weeks. Maybe a month. And he's already running on fumes. Jae-won's fists clench. Cha says it's a simple equation. How many people is the boy willing to die for? He stands and walks to the door. He pauses with his hand on the frame. He says he'll be watching, whatever Jae-won decides. Then he's gone. Our boy stands alone in the tea house, with the scent of jasmine and the weight of a choice pressing down on his chest. The chest pain isn't from the ability this time. It's something else entirely. He walks out into the cold Seoul evening. The city lights are just coming on. Millions of people. millions of timers he could read, and one man who just handed him a death sentence wrapped in a moral test. He pulls out his phone and calls Seo. He says he needs everything she has on Senator Park Min-joon. Schedule, security detail, family, everything. She asks if this is about Cha. He says yes. She says she'll have the file ready in an hour. He says he's coming to the station now. Then he calls Yeonji. She's at her office, still working at 9 o'clock at night. He asks if she knows the senator. She says everyone knows the senator. He's the only person in the assembly who keeps launching investigations into O Group's political donations. He's been a target for years. Jae-won says Cha just told him the senator has 3 days to live. Silence on the line. Then Yeonji says she'll meet him at the station. She hangs up before he can argue. Our boy calls Hairi last. She answers with a voice that says she's been pacing for the past hour. He says he's fine. She says she doesn't believe him. He says Cha offered him a deal. She asks what kind of deal. He says the kind where he walks away and lets people die. She's quiet for a long moment. Then she asks what he said. He says he pushed the vial back across the table. She breathes out. He says Cha is going after Senator Park next. 3 days. Hit and run. Hairi says her father knows the senator. They've been allies on a few trade bills. She says she'll call her father and get the senator's private number. Jae-won says that would help. She says to be careful. He says he will. He doesn't mention the part about his clock running down. She already knows. They all know. 1 hour later, Jae-won walks into the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency. Seo meets him in the lobby. She's got a thick folder under her arm and a coffee in each hand. She hands him one and says he looks terrible. He says he feels worse. She leads him to a conference room where Yeonji is already waiting. The lawyer has 3 laptops open and a whiteboard covered in names and arrows. She says she's mapped every case Senator Park has touched in the past 2 years. Seo spreads photos across the table. The senator's house, his office, his regular route to the assembly building, the cafe where he gets coffee every morning at 7:15. Jae-won studies the photos. He says Cha will use the morning commute. It's the most predictable part of the senator's day. Seo agrees. She points to an intersection near Gwanghwamun. Heavy traffic, multiple lanes, a perfect spot for a vehicle to accelerate through a crosswalk and disappear. Yeonji pulls up the senator's schedule. He has a committee hearing in 3 days. Starts at 9 a.m. He'll be at that intersection around 8:40. Jae-won says that's where it happens. They have 3 days to stop it. Seo says she can request a protective detail. Jae-won shakes his head. He says Cha has people inside the police, maybe inside the senator's own staff. If they flag the threat through official channels, Cha will know. He'll just change the plan. Another intersection. Another day, and Jae-won won't see it coming. Yeonji asks what he's suggesting. Jae-won says they go to the senator directly. Tonight. Face to face. Tell him everything. Seo says the senator doesn't know them. He has no reason to believe a stranger who claims to see death dates. Jae-won says he'll make him believe. The same way he made Seo believe. He'll read timers. He'll prove it. Yeonji says it's risky. If the senator thinks they're crazy or working for Cha, he could have them arrested. Jae-won says that's a chance he's willing to take. He looks at both women. He says Cha expects him to burn out, to save so many people that his own clock hits 0. But Cha made one mistake. He told Jae-won exactly who he's targeting next. That gives them a 3-day head start. Seo smiles. It's not a nice smile. It's the smile of a woman who likes long odds. She says she'll drive. Yeonji closes her laptops. She says she's coming too. Jae-won says it could be dangerous. Yeonji says she's a lawyer for a human rights firm. She gets death threats twice a week. This is just Tuesday. Our boy laughs despite himself. And just like that, the team is in motion. 3 people in a police cruiser, driving toward the home of the most powerful, honest man in Seoul, to tell him he's going to die, and to prove they're the only ones who can save him. The city slides past the windows, neon and headlights and a million tiny timers. Jae-won isn't reading right now. He's conserving his strength. He knows he'll need it. Senator Park Min-joon lives in a modest house in Seongbuk-dong. Not the kind of place you'd expect for a national politician. No gate, no guards, just a courtyard with a persimmon tree and a light on in the study. Seo parks down the street. She says the senator is known for refusing security, says it makes him look paranoid. Jae-won says tonight it might get him killed. They walk up to the front door. Jae-won knocks. A woman in her 60s answers. The senator's wife. She asks who they are. Yeonji steps forward and introduces herself. Attorney Lee Yeonji. She says they have urgent information regarding a threat to the senator's life. The wife's face goes pale. She lets them in. Senator Park is in his study, surrounded by papers and books. He's a solid man in his early 70s. White hair, kind eyes, kind of face that's spent a lifetime fighting for things that matter. He looks up and asks what this is about. Jae-won doesn't waste time. He says in 3 days, someone is going to try to kill him. A hit and run near Gwanghwamun, made to look like an accident. The senator leans back in his chair. He asks who sent them. Jae-won says no one sent them. They came because they know the man who ordered the hit, Cha Kwang-soo. The senator's expression doesn't change. He says Cha Kwang-soo has been trying to kill him for 20 years. This isn't news. Jae-won says this time it's different. This time Cha has a specific plan, a specific time, a specific place. He says he knows because he can see it. The senator raises an eyebrow. He looks at the senator's head. The number is there. 3 days, 4 hours, 22 minutes. It's ticking down even as he watches. Jae-won tells the senator exactly what he's seeing. The senator's wife gasps. Senator Park just stares. He says that's quite a claim. He turns to the senator's wife and reads her timer. 41 years, 7 months, 11 days. She blinks. She asks how he could possibly know that. Jae-won says because he can see the exact moment her soul leaves her body. Unless someone or something changes it. That's how the ability works. Soo-ah steps forward. She says she didn't believe him either. She arrested him 2 weeks ago. Thought he was a con man or a lunatic. Then she watched him read the timers of 8 prisoners in a holding cell. Correctly. Every single one. Yeonji says she was marked to die in a courthouse bombing. Jae-won found her, saved her life, risked his own to do it. The senator looks at all 3 of them. He asks what they want him to do. Jae-won says he wants the senator to change his routine. Take a different route to the assembly. Skip the coffee stop. Arrive early instead of on time. Just for 1 day. The senator says, that's it? Change his morning commute? Jae-won says that's it. The hit is planned for a specific intersection at a specific time. If the senator isn't there, the driver has no target. Cha's plan falls apart. At least for now. Senator Park is quiet for a long moment. He looks at his wife. Then at the 3 strangers standing in his study. He says he's spent his entire career being careful. Checking under his car, varying his routes, looking over his shoulder. 20 years of paranoia. And now 3 young people show up at his door, telling him the one trick he hasn't tried is taking a left instead of a right. Jae-won says sometimes that's all it takes. The senator smiles. It's a tired smile, but a real one. He says he'll do it. He'll change his route. He'll be careful. He asks if there's anything else. Jae-won says one more thing. He asks the senator to keep fighting. Whatever investigations he's running, whatever bills he's blocking, don't stop. Cha Kwang-soo wants him dead for a reason. He's scared of what the senator might uncover. Senator Park nods slowly. He says he's been fighting for 40 years. He's not about to stop now. He stands and shakes Jae-won's hand. He says he doesn't know what kind of person can see death, but he's grateful there's one on his side. Jae-won says he's just trying to help. They leave the house and walk back to the cruiser. The night air is cold and clean. Soo-ah asks if Jae-won is okay. He's lying. He felt the chest pains spike the moment he told the senator to change his route, a sharp, hot wire through his ribs. 30 seconds this time. He doesn't mention it. But Yeonji notices the way he's breathing. He asks how much it cost. He says he doesn't know exactly. Weeks, maybe. She says that's not sustainable. He says he knows. But what's the alternative? Let the senator die? They all know the answer. Soo-ah drives them back toward the city center. Yeonji types furiously on her phone. She says she's going to dig deeper into Cha's shell companies. The warehouse raid gave them a thread. She's going to pull it until the whole thing unravels. Jae-won leans his head against the window. He watches the city lights blur past. His chest still aches. His clock is still ticking. But tonight, they saved a good man's life. And that's worth something. That's worth everything. 3 days later, Senator Park Min-joon takes a different route to the assembly. He skips his coffee stop. He arrives at 8:15 instead of 8:40. At 8:42, a delivery truck runs a red light at the Gwanghwamun intersection, plows through the crosswalk exactly where the senator would have been waiting. Jae-won watches the news footage on Hyri's massive television screen. The reporter calls it a tragic accident. No fatalities, but 3 pedestrians injured. Jae-won knows it wasn't an accident. He toggles the ability on and watches the senator's press conference live. Senator Park stands at a podium and says he was supposed to be at that intersection. He changed his routine at the last minute. He doesn't say why. He doesn't mention the 3 strangers who warned him. He just says he's grateful to be alive. And he's going to keep doing his job. The chest pain hits Jae-won like a freight train. Worse than ever before. A full 60 seconds of fire through his ribs. He grips the couch and breathes through it. Hae-ri kneels beside him and holds his hand. When it passes, he looks at her. He says it's getting worse. She says she knows. She says she's been doing research. Her family's foundation has access to medical records going back a century. She's found references to others with the sight. Shamans. Seers. People who could see death. Every single one of them died young, burned out from saving too many lives. Jae-won asks how young. She says the oldest was 34. Our boy is 28. He has maybe a year left, maybe less. He looks at Hae-ri's face, at the worry in her eyes, at the way she's holding his hand like she's afraid he'll disappear. He says he's not going to stop. She says she knows that too. She says she's not asking him to stop. She's asking him to let them help more. All 3 of them. Suo with her badge, Yeonji with her legal mind, her with her resources. They can do more than just be the people he comes home to. They can be the people who fight beside him. Jae-won squeezes her hand. He says they already are. She leans forward and kisses his cheek. Quick and soft and full of things neither of them is ready to say out loud. She stands and grabs her tablet. She says she's found something. A property Cha Kwang-soo owns through a dozen shell companies. A warehouse on the outskirts of Incheon. She says it might be where he keeps his records. His real records, not the sanitized versions his lawyers wave around. Jae-won takes the tablet and looks at the satellite images. A nondescript building. Barbed wire. Security cameras. Guards patrolling the perimeter. He says it looks like a fortress. Hae-ri says it is. But she knows a guy who can get them inside. Jae-won smiles. Of course she does. He says to make the call. The game isn't over. Not yet. The morning after the senator's press conference, Yeonji shows up at Hae-ri's penthouse unannounced. He's holding a silver flash drive in one hand and a bag of pastries in the other. Hae-ri lets her in with a raised eyebrow and a comment about lawyers never knocking. Yeonji ignores her and walks straight to the dining table where Jae-won is nursing his 3rd cup of coffee. She drops the flash drive on the table with a satisfying click. She says she's been up for 36 hours straight, and she's found something. Jae-won picks up the drive and asks what's on it. Yeonji says everything. Shell companies stretching across 4 continents, bribes to judges, prosecutors, and 3 sitting members of the National Assembly, property holdings that don't appear on any public registry, and 1 very interesting account in the Cayman Islands with a balance of $470 million. All of it traces back to Cha Kwang-soo. Hae-ri whistles low and says that's a lot of zeros. Yeonji says it gets better. She pulls out her tablet and brings up a series of transaction records. Tiny payments. 50,000 won here, 100,000 there, all to the same nursing home in Gangwon province. Jae-won asks who's in the nursing home. Yeonji says the records don't name the patient, but the payments started exactly 17 years ago, and they've never missed a month. Hae-ri crosses her arms and says Cha doesn't seem like the charitable type. Yeonji agrees. She thinks it's leverage, someone Cha cares about, or someone he's keeping alive for a reason. Jae-won stares at the numbers on the screen and feels a slow burn starting in his chest. Not the pain this time. Something else. Something that feels like hope. He asks if there's enough here to bring Cha down. Yeonji hesitates. She says the financial stuff is solid. Money laundering, tax evasion, bribery. But Cha's lawyers will tie it up in court for years, and none of it proves the murders. The stolen lifespans. The supernatural side of things. Jae-won says they don't need to prove that part in court. They just need enough to get the prosecutors moving. Once Cha's distracted fighting legal battles, he'll make mistakes. Hae-ri says she knows a reporter at the Seoul Daily who's been digging into Cha for years. She can leak the financial records anonymously. Yeonji says that's risky. Hae-ri grins and says that's why it'll work. Jae-won looks between the 2 women, a lawyer and an heiress, planning an illegal leak over coffee and pastries. He says they're both insane. Yeonji says he's the one who can see death numbers above people's heads. He doesn't get to call anyone insane. Fair point. Jae-won asks what the next step is. Yeonji says the flash drive is a copy. The original data is still on a server inside Cha's corporate headquarters in Gangwon. If they want everything, They need to access that server directly. Jae-won says that sounds like breaking and entering. Yeonji says it's technically corporate espionage. Hye-ri says she likes corporate espionage. It sounds fancy. Jae-won rubs his temples and asks how they're supposed to walk into Cha's headquarters without getting caught. Hye-ri says she has an idea. She disappears into her study and comes back with a tablet showing the building's security layout. Private security firm. Retinal scanners on every door. Armed guards in the lobby. But the building's cleaning contractor is a subsidiary of O Group. He can get them uniforms and access badges. Jae-won says that's insane. Hye-ri says insane is sort of their brand at this point. Yeonji says she's in. She wants to see Cha's face when his empire crumbles. Jae-won looks at the flash drive again. He thinks about the senator standing at that podium. About the 3 pedestrians who got hit instead of him. About the fire in his chest that gets worse every time he saves someone. He says he's in too. But they need Seo. Hyuri asks why. Jae-won says because if something goes wrong, they'll need someone with a badge to get them out, and Seo knows Cha's security protocols from the warehouse raid. Yeonji pulls out her phone and calls Seo. 20 minutes later, the detective is standing in Hye-ri's penthouse looking at the blueprints. She says they're all out of their minds. Then she asks what time they're going in. Hye-ri says tomorrow night. The cleaning crew works from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. They'll have a 6-hour window. Seo says she can't officially sanction a break-in, but she can park a patrol car 3 blocks away and keep her radio on. If things go bad, she'll respond to a disturbance call. Yeonji asks what the odds are of things going bad. Seo says Cha's headquarters has 24 armed guards, motion sensors on every floor, and a panic room on the top level where Cha stores his most sensitive documents. Jae-won says they're not hitting the panic room. They just need the server on the 14th floor. Yeonji says she can handle the digital side. She's got a program that'll clone the server data in about 40 minutes. They just need to plug it in and keep the guards from noticing. Hye-ri says she can handle the guards. Her family's security team has a guy who can loop the camera feeds. They'll see an empty hallway while they're walking right through it. Jae-won says he'll handle the unexpected. He toggles his ability on for a moment and watches the numbers flicker above Yeonji's head. 41 years. Hye-ri. 53 years. Seo. 47 years. He's not losing any of them. Not tonight. Not ever. He toggles the ability off and says they move at midnight tomorrow. The next 24 hours are a blur of preparation. Yeonji briefs them on the server layout. Hye-ri gets the uniforms and badges. Seo arranges the patrol route. Jae-won sits in Hye-ri's guest room and stares at the ceiling. He thinks about Moon Tae-ho, about the ritual that gave him this ability, about the grandmother who was a shaman, and the great-grandfather who predicted his own death. He wonders if they'd be proud of what he's doing, or if they'd tell him to stop before he burns himself out. He thinks about Cha Kwang-soo's offer, 10 years of lifespan in a glass vial, enough to buy him more time, enough to keep fighting. He said no then. He'd say no again, because taking that vial would mean accepting what Cha does. Stealing lives from people who never had a choice. And Jae-won refuses to become the thing he's fighting. He falls asleep around 3 a.m. At 10 p.m. the next night, they meet in an alley 2 blocks from Cha's headquarters. Yeonji looks different in the cleaning uniform. Sharper somehow, like she's been waiting her whole life to do something this reckless. Hye-ri looks like she's having the time of her life. Seo looks like she's regretting every choice that led her to this alley. She hands Jae-won a small earpiece and says she'll be listening. If anyone says the word pineapple, she's coming in hard. Jae-won asks why pineapple. Seo says because no one says pineapple in a real emergency. It's the perfect code word. Hye-ri says that's weirdly brilliant. Seo says she's weirdly brilliant at a lot of things. Yeonji rolls her eyes and says they should move before someone spots them. They walk to the service entrance of the building. The guard at the door is a bored-looking man in his 50s. Hye-ri hands him a clipboard with their forged work orders. He barely glances at it. He waves them through. Just like that, they're inside Cha Kwang-soo's fortress. The service elevator takes them to the 14th floor. The halls are dark and quiet. Emergency lights cast pale blue shadows on the walls. Jae-won toggles his ability on and scans the corridor. No numbers. No one in the immediate vicinity. He nods at Yeonji. She leads them to the server room. It's locked with an electronic keypad. Hye-ri pulls out a small device from her pocket and attaches it to the keypad. The device beeps twice and the door clicks open. Jae-won asks where she got that. Hye-ri says she has a guy. Of course she does. They slip inside the server room. Rows of black towers hum quietly in the cool air. Yeonji finds the main terminal and plugs in her drive. The screen lights up with a progress bar. 40 minutes. Jae-won positions himself by the door. Haeri watches the camera feeds on her tablet. The first 20 minutes are silent. Then Haeri's tablet shows movement on the 15th floor. 2 guards, heading for the stairwell. She whispers that they've got company. Jae-won asks if they're coming to the 14th floor. Haeri says she can't tell. The camera feed is black and white and grainy. Yeonji says the clone is at 60%. They need more time. Jae-won makes a decision. He tells Haeri to stay with Yeonji. He's going to intercept the guards. He slips out of the server room and moves toward the stairwell. The stairwell door opens and 2 men step out. The first one has a timer reading 11 years. The second one, Jae-won freezes. The second one has 3 hours and 42 minutes. A death number that short means something is about to happen. Something bad. Jae-won steps back into the shadows and watches. The guard with the short timer looks nervous. His hand keeps drifting toward his sidearm. His partner asks if he's okay. He's lying. Jae-won can see it in the way the man's eyes keep darting toward the server room. He knows something. Or he's been told to do something. Jae-won makes a quick decision. He steps out of the shadows and walks toward the guards with a confident stride. He's wearing the cleaning uniform. He looks like he belongs. The guard with 11 years asks what he's doing on this floor. Jae-won says there's a leak in the server room, water dripping from the ceiling. He needs help moving some equipment before it gets damaged. The guard with 3 hours stares at Jae-won for a long moment. Then he says he'll help. His partner looks surprised, but he nods and says they'll both help. Jae-won leads them toward the server room. His heart is pounding. His chest is starting to ache, not from the ability, from pure adrenaline. He opens the server room door, and the guards step inside. Haeri and Yeonji look up in surprise. Jae-won gives them a look that says, "Play along." The guard with 11 years starts asking about the leak. The guard with 3 hours doesn't say anything. He just walks toward the server racks. His hand is still on his sidearm. Jae-won watches him carefully. The timer above his head is ticking down. 3 hours and 40 minutes now. The guard stops in front of the main terminal. He looks at Yeonji's flash drive. He looks at the progress bar. He looks at Jae-won, and he says he knows who they are. He says Cha told him someone would come for the servers. He was told to wait, to watch, and to make sure no one left with the data. Jae-won asks what Cha offered him. The guard laughs. It's a hollow sound. He says Cha didn't offer him anything. Cha took something. His wife, his daughter. They're being held somewhere, and if the guard doesn't follow orders, they die. Jae-won looks at the timer above the guard's head. 3 hours and 38 minutes. He asks if the guard really thinks Cha will let his family go. The guard doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. They both know the answer. Jae-won says there's another way. He tells the guard about his ability, about the numbers, about what he sees above the guard's head right now. The guard asks what number he sees. Jae-won tells him. 3 hours and 36 minutes. The guard's face goes pale. He asks if that's when Cha kills him. Jae-won says he doesn't know. The numbers only show when, not how, or why. But he knows someone who can help. Moon Tae-ho, the old detective who gave him the ability. If anyone can find the guard's family before the timer runs out, it's him. The guard hesitates. His partner is staring at him in disbelief. Yeonji's progress bar hits 80%. Guard with 11 years reaches for his radio. The guard with 3 hours stops him. He says they're going to let these people finish what they're doing, and then he's going to help them, because Cha took his family, and if he's going to die anyway, he'd rather die fighting back. Jae-won nods. He pulls out his phone and calls Tae-ho. The old detective answers on the second ring. Jae-won explains the situation. A guard's family is being held by Cha. The guard has 3 hours to live. They need to find the family before the timer hits 0. Tae-ho says he's on it. He asks for the guard's name. The guard says his name is Yoon Do-yoon. His wife is Yoon Mi-kyung. His daughter is Yoon So-jin. Tae-ho says he'll call back. The line goes dead. Yeonji's progress bar hits 98%. Haeri is watching the camera feeds. She says there's movement on the ground floor. 6 guards heading for the elevators. Someone tipped them off. Jae-won says they need to move. The clone finishes at 99%. Yeonji yanks the drive out of the terminal. She says it's enough. They got most of the data. Jae-won tells Yoon Do-yoon to come with them. He says he'll do everything he can to save his family, but he has to trust them. The guard nods. He tells his partner to go back to the 15th floor and pretend he never saw anything. The partner hesitates. Then he nods and heads for the stairwell. Chae-won, Yeonji, Haeri, and Yoon Do-yoon pile into the service elevator. Haeri says the guards are on the 12th floor and climbing. They're going to cut it close. Chae-won tells everyone to stay calm. The elevator descends. 5th floor, 3rd floor, ground floor. The doors open, and they walk out the service entrance like they own the place. The guard from earlier is still at his post. He looks at Yoon Do-yoon with mild curiosity. Chae-won says they're done for the night. The guard waves them through. They make it to the alley where Soo-ah is waiting. She takes one look at Yoon Do-yoon and asks who the extra person is. Chae-won says he's a friend. He's also got a timer that's about to run out. Soo-ah's expression hardens. She asks what they need. Chae-won says they need to find this man's family before Cha kills them. Soo-ah says she'll put out an alert. She asks for descriptions. Yoon Do-yoon gives her everything he knows. His wife's face. His daughter's laugh. The address of their apartment. The school his daughter attends. Soo-ah types it all into her phone and sends it to her precinct. She says she'll find them. Chae-won's phone rings. It's Tae-ho. He says he's got a lead. Cha owns a property in Paju, a farmhouse about an hour north of Seoul. If Cha is holding hostages, that's where they'll be. Chae-won looks at Yoon Do-yoon's timer. 2 hours and 51 minutes. He says they're going to Paju, now. The team piles into 2 cars. Soo-ah takes the lead with Yoon Do-yoon in her cruiser. Chae-won, Yeonji, and Haeri follow in Haeri's sedan. The highway stretches dark and empty ahead of them. Chae-won watches the timer above Yoon Do-yoon's head through the rear window of the cruiser. 2 hours and 30 minutes. 2 hours and 29. The chest pain is starting to build, not from saving anyone yet, from the anticipation, from the knowledge that he's about to save someone again. And it's going to cost him. Yeonji reaches over and squeezes his hand. She says they're going to make it. Haeri says she's already called her family's security team. They're meeting them at the farmhouse with backup. Chae-won says this is what Cha does. He takes people. He uses them. He breaks them. And he never lets them go. Tonight, they're going to prove him wrong. Tonight, they're going to save a family. The sedan speeds north through the dark. The timer ticks down. And somewhere in Paju, a woman and her daughter are waiting to be found. The convoy screams north on the highway toward Paju. Soo-ah's cruiser leads the pack with its lights off. Chae-won sits in the back of Haeri's sedan, watching the timer above Yoon Do-yoon's head through the rear window. 2 hours and 11 minutes. 2 hours and 10. Yeonji grips the flash drive like it's made of glass. Haeri's knuckles are white on the steering wheel. She says her family's security team is already in position near the farmhouse. They're waiting for the signal. Chae-won's phone buzzes. It's Tae-ho. The old detective's voice sounds strange when Chae-won answers. Rough. Thin. Like he's been coughing for an hour straight. Tae-ho says he found the farmhouse layout in some old county records. 3 buildings. Main house, storage shed, and a root cellar dug into the hillside. If Cha is holding hostages anywhere, it's going to be that cellar. Chae-won asks if he's okay. Tae-ho doesn't answer the question. He says there's something else Chae-won needs to know. Something he should have told him weeks ago. The artifact Cha uses to steal lifespans isn't just a tool. It's bound to him. And it's bound to anyone who uses the site. Chae-won asks what that means. Tae-ho says the ritual he performed to give Jae-won the ability came with a chain. A tether. Every time Jae-won saves a life and burns his own lifespan, that energy doesn't just vanish. It flows somewhere. And that somewhere is the artifact. Jae-won's chest tightens. He asks if Tae-ho is saying Cha has been feeding on him this whole time. Tae-ho says it's worse than that. The artifact doesn't just collect the stolen time. It collects the one who gives it. The more Jae-won uses the ability, the stronger the tether becomes. And if Cha ever gets his hands on Jae-won, he can use that connection to drain him completely. Every last second. Chae-won looks at his own reflection in the window. No number above his head. Never has been. He asks how much time Tae-ho thinks he has left. Tae-ho is quiet for a long moment. Then he says the tether works both ways. If Jae-won can destroy the artifact, he might get some of that time back. Might. But there's a catch. The ritual that gave Jae-won the sight bound Tae-ho to the artifact too. He's been feeling the drain for weeks now. Every save Jae-won makes takes a little piece of Tae-ho with it. Jae-won's blood goes cold. He asks why Tae-ho never told him. Tae-ho says because Jae-won would have stopped saving people. And that's not who he is. That's not who his grandmother was. She saved people until the day she died. No regrets. Tae-ho says he made the same choice when he performed the ritual. He knew the cost. He accepted it. Jae-won tells him to stop talking like he's already dead. Tae-ho laughs, but it comes out as a cough. A wet one. He says he's got maybe an hour left. Maybe less. The tether has been pulling harder since the warehouse raid. Since Jae-won saved those women. Jae-won says he's coming back. He tells Haeri to turn the car around. Tae-ho says no. Absolutely not. There's nothing Jae-won can do for him now. He can save Yoon Do-yeon's family. He can make sure Cha doesn't win tonight. That's the only thing that matters. Jae-won's jaw is so tight it aches. Tae-ho's voice softens. He says he's proud of Jae-won. Proud of the man he's become. Proud of what he's built. The team. The trust. The willingness to burn his own candle for strangers. That's not something you can teach. That's just who he is. Tae-ho says there's one more thing in the file he left at the office. A safe behind the filing cabinet. Combination is Jae-won's grandmother's birthday. Inside, there's a journal. Her journal. It explains everything. The origin of the site, the history of the artifact, and how to destroy it. Jae-won tells him to hold on. Just hold on until they get back. Tae-ho says he'll try. His voice is fading. Sua's voice crackles over the earpiece. She says they're 10 minutes out from the farmhouse. No lights visible from the road. Either it's abandoned or someone's being very careful. Jae-won relays the intel about the 3 buildings and the root cellar. Sua says she'll take point with Yoon Do-yeon. Haeri's security team will flank from the east. Jae-won's phone is still pressed to his ear. He hears Tae-ho's breathing. Slow. Labor. Tae-ho says there's something he wants Jae-won to remember. Something important. The site isn't a curse. It's a gift. It's the universe saying that this person right here matters enough to be seen. Every number Jae-won reads is a story. A life. A chance. Don't ever forget that. The line goes quiet. Jae-won says Tae-ho's name. No response. He says it again. Louder. Still nothing. Yeonji puts her hand on his arm. Her eyes are wet. Jae-won lowers the phone. The sedan goes silent except for the hum of the engine. Haeri asks if he's gone. Jae-won doesn't answer. He doesn't have to. The convoy reaches the turnoff for the farmhouse. Sua kills the headlights and pulls onto a dirt road lined with bare trees. The sedan follows. The farmhouse comes into view through the branches. Park. No cars in the driveway. No lights in the windows. But there's a faint glow coming from behind the main building, like a cellar door left open. Sua parks behind a cluster of pines, and everyone gets out. The night air is cold and sharp. Yoon Do-yeon is shaking. Not from the cold. From fear. His timer reads 1 hour and 43 minutes. Jae-won puts a hand on his shoulder. He says they're going to find his family. No matter what. Haeri's security team arrives. 6 men in dark clothing moving silently through the trees. The team leader hands Haeri a tablet showing thermal imaging of the property. 2 heat signatures in the main house. Guards. 4 more in the root cellar. 3 of them stationary. 1 moving. Smaller. A child. Yoon Do-yeon nearly collapses when he sees the image. Sua outlines the plan. She and Jae-won will take the main house. Silent takedowns. Haeri's team will secure the perimeter. Yeonji stays with the vehicles and monitors the police band. If anything goes wrong, she calls for backup. Jae-won toggles on his ability. The guards in the house have timers. One has 17 years. The other has 4 hours and 12 minutes. He tells Sua which one is marked for tonight. She nods. They move. The back door of the farmhouse is unlocked. Sloppy. Sua goes in first, her taser drawn. Jae-won follows close behind. The first guard is in the kitchen, making coffee. 17 years. Sua tases him before he can turn around. He drops without a sound. The second guard is in the living room, watching a soccer match on his phone. 4 hours and 11 minutes now. Jae-won steps into the doorway. The guard looks up. Jae-won tells him to put the phone down and walk away. Just walk away and he lives. The guard laughs. He asks who Jae-won thinks he is. Jae-won tells him his timer. 4 hours, 10 minutes. The guard's smile fades. He reaches for his gun. Sua appears behind him and puts the taser against his neck. He convulses and hits the floor. They zip-tie both guards and move to the cellar. The cellar door is heavy oak with an iron latch. Yoon Do-yeon is already there waiting. Haeri's team has the perimeter locked down. No one in or out. Jae-won checks his phone one more time. No call from Tae-ho. He puts the phone away and focuses on the task in front of him. The latch slides open with a groan. The stairs down are dirt and stone. Cold air rushes up to meet them. And the smell. Damp earth and something else. Blood. Jae-won descends first. Seo is right behind him with her flashlight. The cellar is larger than it looked on the thermal scan. A long room with a low ceiling and support beams every few feet. At the far end is a metal cage. Inside the cage are two figures, a woman and a child. Yoon Do-yoon pushes past Jae-won and runs toward them. He screams his wife's name, Mi-kyung. She looks up. Her face is bruised and dirty, but she's alive. Seo Jin, the daughter, is huddled against her mother's side. Yoon Do-yoon reaches the cage and grabs the bars. He's crying. His wife is crying. Even Soo-ah looks like she might crack. But Jae-won isn't looking at the family. He's looking at the figure standing in the shadows behind the cage. A man in a long coat. Tall. Still. No timer above his head. No Jin-hyuk steps into the light. He says he was wondering when Jae-won would show up. Jae-won asks where Cha is. Jin-hyuk says Cha is busy. He sent him instead, with a message. Jin-hyuk pulls a small black device from his coat pocket. A detonator. He says the cage is rigged with explosives. If Jae-won takes one more step, the whole cellar collapses. Yoon Do-yoon screams at him, begs him. Jin-hyuk doesn't even look at him. He only looks at Jae-won. He says Cha wants to meet. In person. No police, no backup. Just Jae-won and the artifact. Jae-won asks what happens if he refuses. Jin-hyuk holds up the detonator. He says the family dies. Then Hyri's security team dies. Then Soo-ah. Then everyone Jae-won has ever spoken to. Cha is done playing games. 1 hour and 12 minutes. He looks at the woman in the cage. Her timer reads 53 years. The little girl has 71. Jin-hyuk is telling the truth about one thing. Cha is done playing. But so is Jae-won. He tells Jin-hyuk he accepts. He'll meet Cha, but the family walks free first, right now. Jin-hyuk smiles. He says that's not how this works. Jae-won says it's exactly how this works. Because if Jin-hyuk detonates those explosives, he dies too. Jae-won knows something Jin-hyuk doesn't. He toggles on his ability and looks directly at Jin-hyuk. The enforcer's timer blinks into view. 0 years, 0 days, 0 hours, 58 minutes, 57. Jin-hyuk's smile falls. He asks what Jae-won is looking at. Jae-won tells him 56 minutes. That's how long Jin-hyuk has to live, unless he walks away right now. Jin-hyuk's hand trembles on the detonator. He says Jae-won is bluffing. Jae-won says he's never bluffed in his life. Ask anyone who knows him. Yeonji, Soo-ah, Hyeri all tell you the same thing. So Jae-won sees death. And right now he's looking at Jin-hyuk's. 51 minutes. The enforcer takes a step back. He asks how that's possible. Cha promised him immortality. Cha promised him centuries. Jae-won says Cha lied. Cha lies to everyone. That's what he does. He takes and he lies, and he leaves bodies behind. Jin-hyuk was never going to be immortal. He was just another tool. And tools get thrown away. 50 minutes. Jin-hyuk's face contorts. Rage, fear, despair, all of it at once. He asks what he has to do. Jae-won says put the detonator down and walk away. Help them take Cha down. And maybe, just maybe, can find a way to break his timer before it hits 0. Jin-hyuk hesitates. The detonator is still in his grip. Yoon Do-yoon is still gripping the bars. The little girl is still crying. Then Jin-hyuk lowers the detonator. He places it on the ground and steps back. He'll help. But if Jae-won is lying, he'll kill him himself. Jae-won says he's not lying. Soo-ah moves forward and secures the detonator. Hyri's team moves in to open the cage. The lock takes 3 minutes to cut through. When the door swings open, Yoon Do-yoon grabs his wife and daughter and pulls them into his arms. He's sobbing. They all are. Jae-won checks the timer above Yoon Do-yoon's head. 31 years. 47 days. 11 hours. The chest pain hits him like a freight train. He stumbles and grabs a support beam. Soo-ah catches him before he falls. She asks how bad it is. Jae-won says he'll live. For now. No Jin-hyuk watches all of this from the corner of the cellar. His timer still ticking down. 42 minutes. He says he knows where Cha is. Mansion in Yangpyeong. Heavily guarded but accessible if you know the layout. And Jin-hyuk knows every inch of it. Jae-won straightens up and wipes sweat from his forehead. He says they're going to need more than a layout. They're going to need a plan. A big one. Because Cha is going to come at them with everything he has. And Jae-won intends to be ready. The team regroups outside the farmhouse. Yoon Do-yoon's family is wrapped in thermal blankets from Hae-ri's security SUV. The little girl Seo Jin is clutching a stuffed rabbit, one of the security guys found in the main house. Yeonji calls in an ambulance for the family and the zip-tied guards. Soo-ah is on the phone with her precinct, arranging transport for Jin-hyuk. He's going into protective custody. For now. Jin-hyuk is standing apart from the group staring at nothing. His timer reads 31 minutes. Jae-won approaches him. He asks if Jin-hyuk knows what happens in 30 minutes. Jin-hyuk says no. Jae-won says neither does he. If Jin-hyuk was meant to die in this cellar tonight and he walked away, then maybe the numbers can change. Maybe they already did. Jin-hyuk looks at him. Really looks at him. He says Jae-won actually believes that. Jae-won says he has to believe it because if the numbers can't change, then everything he's done is pointless. And he refuses to accept that. 28 minutes. Jin-hyuk's timer blinks, still counting down. Then it stops. The numbers dissolve and reform. Jin-hyuk's new timer reads 17 years, 4 months, 2 days. Jin-hyuk sees the look on Jae-won's face. He asks what just happened. Jae-won tells him. He says it looks like Jin-hyuk just got 17 years. Jin-hyuk's legs buckle, and he sits down hard on the frozen ground. He doesn't say anything. He just stares at the sky. Jae-won's phone buzzes again. The caller ID says Moon Tae-ho. His heart jumps into his throat. He answers. It's not Tae-ho. It's a paramedic. She says they found Tae-ho collapsed in his office. He's alive, but barely. Heart failure. They're taking him to Seoul National University Hospital. Jae-won says he'll be there. He hangs up and tells the team they're leaving. Now. The ambulances arrive for Yoon Do-yoon's family. Soo-ah hands Jin-hyuk off to a patrol unit with strict instructions. No one talks to him without her authorization. Yeonji is already in the passenger seat of Hae-ri's sedan. Hae-ri has the engine running. Jae-won gets in the back. The sedan tears down the dirt road toward the highway. Towards Seoul. Toward Tae-ho. Jae-won's chest still aches from the save. His timer is shorter now. He can feel it. But he doesn't care. Tae-ho is alive. Jae-won is going to make sure he stays that way. The sedan tears down the highway towards Seoul. Jae-won stares out the window at the passing lights. His chest still throbs from the save at the farmhouse. But his mind is somewhere else entirely. On Tae-ho, on the artifact, on the journal waiting in that office safe. Soo-ah is in the front passenger seat, phone pressed to her ear. She's coordinating Jin-hyuk's transfer to protective custody. Her voice is all business. But her free hand is clenched into a fist on her knee. Hae-ri drives like a woman possessed. 140 kilometers per hour and climbing. Yeonji turns around from the front seat and asks Jae-won if he's okay. He's lying and everyone in the car knows it. The sedan reaches Seoul National University Hospital in 42 minutes. Jae-won is out the door before the car fully stops. He runs through the emergency room entrance. A nurse tries to stop him. He flashes the visitor pass Soo-ah gave him and keeps moving. Tae-ho is in the intensive care unit on the 3rd floor. Room 307. Jae-won finds him hooked up to a dozen machines. Tubes and wires everywhere. A ventilator breathing for him. The old man looks smaller than Jae-won has ever seen him. Fragile in a way that doesn't fit. Jae-won toggles his ability on. He needs to see it. He needs to know. The number above Tae-ho's head reads 4 days. 7 hours. 23 minutes. Jae-won exhales. 4 days is not 0. 4 days means they have time. Soo-ah arrives behind him and puts a hand on his shoulder. She says the doctors told her it's heart failure. Stress-induced. But they don't know the half of it. Jae-won tells her about the tether. About how every save drained Tae-ho. About how the old man gave him the sight knowing it would kill him. Soo-ah doesn't say anything. She just squeezes his shoulder. Yeonji and Hae-ri appear in the doorway. Yeonji is holding a manila envelope. Hae-ri has her tablet. They look at Tae-ho, then at Jae-won, then at each other. Something passes between the three women. A silent agreement. No one says it out loud, but Jae-won can feel it. They're all in now, every single one of them. Jae-won asks Yeonji what's in the envelope. She opens it and spreads the contents on the empty bed next to Tae-ho's. Architectural blueprints, building permits, property records. All for a private residence in Yangpyeong. Jin-hyuk was telling the truth. The mansion sits on 8 acres of wooded land, 3 stories above ground, 2 levels underground. The lower levels are marked as wine cellars on the permits. But Jin Hyuk's handwritten notes tell a different story. Sublevel 1 is a private gallery. Sublevel 2 is the vault. Yeonji points to a room at the very bottom of the blueprint, a circular chamber with reinforced walls. No label, just a circle drawn in red ink. Chae-won asks if Jin Hyuk marked that. Yeonji nods. She says Jin Hyuk was only allowed in the vault twice. Both times, he saw the same thing. A pedestal in the center of the room. And on that pedestal, an hourglass. Hae-ri pulls up satellite imagery on her tablet. The mansion is heavily guarded. Perimeter fence with thermal sensors. At least 12 armed men rotating in shifts. Cameras covering every approach. Soo-ah says a direct assault is impossible. They'd need a battalion. Chae-won stares at the blueprints, then at Tae-ho, then at the number floating above his mentor's head. 4 days. 7 hours. 21 minutes. He says they don't need a battalion. They need a ghost. Chae-won tells Hae-ri to get him Jin Hyuk's notes on the guard rotations. He tells Soo-ah to pull every piece of intel the police have on Cha's properties. He tells Yeonji to find him the original building contractor, someone who worked on that vault, someone who might know a way in that isn't on the blueprints. The women scatter. 3 hours later, they regroup in a private room the hospital let them use. Soo-ah has a full dossier. Cha owns 14 properties across Seoul and Gyeonggi Province. But the Yangpyeong mansion is the only one with underground construction matching the vault description. Hae-ri has the guard rotation schedule, 12-hour shifts. Changeover at 6 in the morning and 6 at night. A 15-minute window when the perimeter sensors cycle down for maintenance. Yeonji has a name, Kim Chang-soo, the foreman who poured the concrete for the vault 30 years ago. He's 72 now and living in a retirement home in Incheon. Chae-won says they're going to visit him. Soo-ah drives. The retirement home smells like boiled cabbage and antiseptic. Kim Chang-soo is in a wheelchair by the window of his room. He has the hands of a man who worked concrete for 40 years. Thick knuckles. Scarred palms. Chae-won introduces himself and says he needs to know about the vault. The old man's eyes sharpen. He says he wondered when someone would come asking. He tells them about the job. It was 1994. Cha Kwang-soo was already rich, but hadn't gone into politics yet. He hired Chang-soo's crew to build a private gallery under his new mansion. But the specifications were strange. Reinforced concrete walls 3 feet thick. A single entrance with a vault door. A drainage system designed to handle a flood. Chang-soo asked Cha what he planned to store down there. Cha smiled and said, family heirlooms. But Chang-soo didn't believe him. He says he saw the pedestal being installed. Saw the carvings on the floor around it. Symbols he didn't recognize. Circles within circles. Writing that looked older than Korea itself. Chang-soo asked his crew chief about it, and the man told him to forget he ever saw it. 3 days later, that crew chief disappeared. Chang-soo never asked another question. Chae-won asks if there's another way into the vault. A service entrance, a ventilation shaft, anything. Chang-soo is quiet for a long moment. Then he says there's a drainage tunnel. It runs from the vault floor to a dry well about 200 meters west of the mansion. It was designed to prevent flooding in case the water table rose. The tunnel is narrow, maybe 2 feet in diameter, but it's there. It's not on any blueprint. Chang-soo says he added it himself. Off the books. After his crew chief vanished, he wanted insurance. A way out if things went wrong. He never used it, but he never forgot it either. Chae-won grips the old man's hand and thanks him. Chang-soo waves him off. He says whatever is in that vault, it brought nothing but misery. He tells Chae-won to destroy it. The team drives back to Seoul in silence. Chae-won spends the ride staring at the ceiling of the car. The drainage tunnel is 200 meters long and barely wide enough for a person. It's a tight fit, but it bypasses every guard, every camera, every fence. Soo-ah says she'll go. She's the smallest and most agile of the group. Chae-won says no. This is his fight. His mentor is dying. His lifespan is burning away. He's going. Hae-ri argues that he's still recovering from the farmhouse. Yeonji says she should go because she's the least recognizable to Cha's men. Chae-won holds up a hand, and the arguing stops. He says they all have jobs to do. Soo-ah will coordinate from outside with a tactical team on standby. If things go wrong, she calls them in. Hae-ri will handle surveillance and electronic countermeasures. She'll jam the cameras at the perimeter during the sensor cycle window. Yeonji will stay at the hospital with Tae-ho. If the hourglass is destroyed and something happens to the tether, she needs to be there. And Jae-won will go into the tunnel. Soo-ah starts to protest, and he cuts her off. He says he's the only one who can see the numbers, the only one who can verify if the artifact is real, the only one who can feel the tether. It has to be him. The women exchange glances, then Seo says fine. But she's putting a tracker on him, and if his vitals spike, she's calling in the cavalry. Jae-won agrees. That night they drive to Yangpyeong. The team sets up in a rented cabin 2 kilometers from the mansion. Hae-ri deploys a portable surveillance rig, monitors, antennas, a small drone for aerial recon. Seo marks the location of the dry well on a topographical map. It's in a wooded hollow west of the property line, hidden by undergrowth, probably untouched for decades. Jae-won suits up, dark clothing, climbing harness, headlamp, knee pads. Seo attaches a biometric tracker to his wrist. She tells him if his heart rate drops or spikes, she's coming in. He says he knows. She says she's serious. He says he knows that too. Then she kisses him. It's quick, barely a second. But Yeonji and Hae-ri both see it. Yeonji's eyes narrow. Hae-ri's lips press into a thin line. Neither woman says anything. But the temperature in the cabin drops about 10 degrees. Jae-won pretends not to notice and heads for the door. He reaches the dry well at 2 in the morning. The moon is a sliver, and the forest is pitch black. He finds the well exactly where Chang-soo said it would be. A stone ring covered in moss. No water at the bottom, just packed earth and a rusted iron grate. Jae-won pries the grate loose and shines his headlamp into the darkness. The tunnel mouth is small, really small. He drops to his belly and crawls inside. The concrete is cold and damp. The tunnel slopes downward at a shallow angle. Jae-won drags himself forward inch by inch. His shoulders scrape both walls. His headlamp illuminates only the next few feet. Spiders. Roots. The occasional trickle of groundwater. He crawls for what feels like hours. In reality, it's 23 minutes. Then his hand touches something that isn't concrete. An iron grate. Vertical this time. He pushes and it swings outward on rusted hinges. Jae-won pulls himself through the opening and collapses onto a cold stone floor. He's in the vault. The room is circular like the blueprints showed, maybe 30 feet across. The walls are lined with shelves holding glass vials. Hundreds of them. Each vial contains a swirling golden liquid that glows faintly in the dark. Jae-won toggles his ability on and nearly chokes. Every single vial has a number floating above it. Lifespans. Stolen and bottled. Decades of time ripped from Cha's victims. His stomach turns. He forces himself to look away from the vials and toward the center of the room. There it is. The hourglass. It sits on a stone pedestal carved with symbols Jae-won doesn't recognize. Circles within circles. Just like Chang-soo described. The hourglass is maybe 2 feet tall. The frame is black iron. The glass is cloudy with age. But the sand inside isn't sand. It glows. Golden grains tumbling from the top chamber to the bottom. Except the top chamber never empties. And the bottom chamber never fills. The sand just keeps falling. A perpetual flow of stolen time. Jae-won reaches toward it, and his chest explodes with pain. Worse than anything he's felt before. He staggers and catches himself on the pedestal. His vision blurs. His legs buckle. The tether, it's stronger here. He can feel it pulling at him, draining him. He forces himself upright and looks at the hourglass again. That's when he sees it. A crack. Hairline thin running down the side of the glass. And a single golden grain resting on the pedestal beside the frame. The artifact is already breaking. Jae-won wraps his hand around the hourglass and lifts it from the pedestal. The moment he touches it, a sound fills the vault. Not a noise you hear with your ears, a sound that vibrates in your bones, a low hum that builds and builds until Jae-won's teeth ache. Then it stops. Silence. Jae-won's earpiece crackles. Soo-ah's voice. He says his heart rate just spiked to 170. She's calling in the team. Jae-won tells her to hold. He has the artifact. He's coming out. He tucks the hourglass into a padded case, slung across his chest, and turns toward the tunnel. Then he stops. There's something else on the pedestal, a journal, bound in black leather. He grabs it and stuffs it into his jacket. He doesn't have time to read it now. He crawls back through the drainage tunnel with the hourglass pressed against his chest. It's heavier than it looks, and cold, impossibly cold, seeping through the padding and into his skin. By the time he reaches the dry well, his fingers are numb. Hae-ri is waiting at the top. She pulls him out of the well, and her eyes go wide when she sees his face. She says he looks like death, Jae-won tells her he feels like it too. They get back to the cabin in 15 minutes. Jae-won sets the hourglass on the table, and everyone stares at it. The golden sand keeps falling, top to bottom. Bottom to something else. Something invisible. Yeonji asks what the vials were. Jae-won tells her. Hundreds of them. Decades of stolen lives. Lifespans Cha has collected over centuries. Seo says they need to go back and retrieve them. Evidence. Jae-won shakes his head. He says the vials are connected to the hourglass. He could feel it when he touched it. Destroy the artifact, and every stolen lifespan returns to its source. Seo asks how he knows that. Jae-won pulls the black leather journal from his jacket. He says he's about to find out. He opens the journal. The handwriting is his grandmother's. Pages and pages of notes. Research. Rituals. Warnings. He flips through until he finds a section marked with a red ribbon. The heading reads, The Vessel. Jae-won reads aloud. His grandmother discovered the hourglass during her own investigation into Cha's network. She learned that it wasn't just a container for stolen time. It was a conduit. A link between Cha and the demonic entity that granted him his power. As long as the hourglass exists, Cha is immortal. But the artifact has limits. It can only hold so much time before it starts to fracture. That's why Cha needs to keep killing. Not just to extend his own life, but to feed the hourglass, to prevent it from breaking and releasing everything he's stolen. Jae-won looks at the crack in the glass. Cha's artifact is already failing. That's why he offered Jae-won the Vial of Years. He's scared. Hye-ri asks how they destroy it. Jae-won flips to the next page. His grandmother's instructions are clear. The hourglass must be shattered at the place where Cha made his original pact. His childhood home, a village clinic in the mountains above Yangpyeong. Yeonji pulls up a map on her tablet. The clinic is still there, abandoned for decades, accessible by a single road. Jae-won says that's where they're going. But first, they need to get Taeho's journal from the safe in his office. The combination is his grandmother's birthday. He'll go first thing in the morning. Seo says she'll drive. Yeonji says she'll stay with Taeho at the hospital. Haeri says she'll start reconnaissance on the clinic. Jae-won nods, and then the room goes quiet. Everyone's looking at the hourglass again. The golden sand still falling, the crack still spreading. Seo asks how long they have. Jae-won toggles his ability on and looks at the artifact. He doesn't see a number, but he feels something. A pressure. A countdown that isn't measured in days or hours. He says, not long. The next morning, Jae-won and Seo drive to Taeho's office. It's a small space above a convenience store in Mapo. Cluttered and dusty and smelling of old coffee. Jae-won finds the safe behind the filing cabinet. He spins the dial. His grandmother's birthday in numbers. The lock clicks open. Inside is a single journal. Taeho's handwriting. Jae-won flips through the pages. More notes on Cha. More details on the ritual that gave Jae-won his sight. And a name written in red ink at the very back. Choi Young-ho, Minister of Justice of the Republic of Korea. Next to the name is a single sentence. The Demon's Master. Jae-won stares at the page. Cha Kwang-soo isn't the top of the pyramid. He's just the front man. The real villain is sitting in the highest levels of government. Seo reads over his shoulder and her face goes pale. She says if Choi Young-ho is involved, this goes way beyond organized crime. This is a conspiracy at the national level. Jae-won closes the journal and tucks it into his jacket. He says they'll deal with Choi later. Right now, they have an hourglass to destroy and a mentor to save. Taeho has 3 days left. They're running out of time. Jae-won and Seo return to the hospital. Yeonji is still at Taeho's bedside. The old man's condition hasn't changed. Haeri arrives with a tactical map of the mountain clinic. She's marked entry points and potential ambush positions. She says the road up is barely passable. They'll need to hike the last 2 kilometers. Jae-won studies the map and memorizes every detail. He checks the hourglass. The crack has grown. Maybe 2 inches now. The golden sand looks agitated, swirling faster than before. Something is coming. Jae-won can feel it in his gut. He says they move tonight. The team assembles at sunset. Seo in tactical gear, Hye-ri with her surveillance equipment. Yeonji staying behind with Taeho, but connected via earpiece. Jae-won straps the hourglass case across his chest. It's heavier now, and warm. Warm in a way that feels wrong. They drive north into the mountains. The road gets narrower and rougher. By the time they reach the trailhead, it's fully dark. Freezing wind cuts through the trees. Hae-ri deploys her drone for aerial recon. The clinic is half a kilometer ahead. No lights, no movement. But the drone's thermal camera picks up something strange. A heat signature inside the main building. Faint but steady. Like a heartbeat. He starts up the trail with Seo and Hae-ri behind him. The forest is silent. Too silent. No birds, no insects, just the crunch of their boots on frozen leaves. They reach the clinic at 11 minutes past midnight. It's a wooden structure from the Japanese colonial period. Rotting beams. Broken windows. A collapsed roof on the east wing. Jae-won pushes open the front door and steps inside. The air is thick with dust and memories. In the center of the main room is a stone altar, carved with the same symbols as the pedestal in the vault. Circles within circles. Jae-won sets the hourglass on the altar, and the hum returns. That bone-deep vibration. Building. Building. And then a voice from the darkness says he was wondering when Jae-won would figure it out. Cha Kwang-soo steps out of the shadows. He's alone. No guards, no enforcer. Just the old man in a tailored suit holding a glass vial of golden liquid. He says he's been expecting Jae-won. He knew the journal would lead him here. He planned for it. He says destroying the hourglass won't stop him. It will only release the demon. And the demon will need a new vessel. Jae-won asks what he's talking about. Cha smiles. He says Jae-won's grandmother never finished her research. She didn't realize that the hourglass isn't just a container. It's a cage, and Jae-won just brought it to the one place where it can be opened. Cha raises the vial. He says he's been saving this for a special occasion. The last 10 years of Moon Taeho's life, compressed into liquid gold. He drinks it in one swallow. The hourglass on the altar begins to glow. The crack spreads, widens, shatters, and something inside breaks free. Hae-ri arrives at the hospital at dawn with a leather satchel pressed against her chest. Her eyes are red. She hasn't slept. She hands Jae-won a second journal and says she found it in Taeho's safe behind the first one. The cover is worn and cracked. The pages smell like dust and old paper and something faintly floral. Jae-won opens it, and the handwriting is different now. Smaller. Precision in every stroke. His grandmother's hand. She writes about a village in the mountains north of Wonju, a place called Ganeum-ri that no longer exists. 73 households, farmers and woodcutters, and one young doctor named Cha Kwang-soo. The year is 1919. A plague sweeps through the valley and kills the children first, then the elderly, then everyone else. Cha is 26 years old, and he watches his wife die coughing black blood into a rag. He watches his daughter die 3 days later. He buries them in frozen ground with his own hands. And then he makes a decision. Jae-won's grandmother writes that Cha walked into the forest on the winter solstice. He carried an iron knife and a bowl made from the skull of a stillborn calf. He cut his palm and let the blood pool in the bowl, and he called out to something old. Something hungry. Something that answered. Seo reads over Jae-won's shoulder and whispers that this is insane. Hae-ri says it's worse than insane. It's true. The journal continues. The demon appeared as a column of black smoke with eyes like furnace doors. It offered Cha a deal. The demon would save the remaining villagers. It would give Cha the power to heal any sickness. And in return, Cha would become the demon's vessel. He would live forever, but he would have to feed. Always and forever and without end. Jae-won turns the page. His grandmother's handwriting becomes shaky here. She writes that Cha accepted the deal. The plague vanished overnight. The villagers recovered. They called it a miracle. They called Cha a saint. And then the first murder happened 6 months later when a traveling merchant passed through Ganeum-ri and never left. Cha discovered that taking a life gave him something better than healing. It gave him time. The journal contains a sketch of the hourglass, crude but recognizable. The same iron frame and swirling sand. His grandmother writes that the hourglass is the demon's heart. It's not a container for stolen lifespans. It's a binding that keeps the demon tethered to Cha's body. If the hourglass breaks, the demon is released. But if the hourglass is destroyed while the demon is inside it, the whole thing unravels. Both the demon and Cha and every stolen year return to where they belong. Jae-won looks at the cracked hourglass on the hospital table. The crack has grown to 3 inches. Golden sand leaks from the fissure in thin, trickling streams. The hum is louder now. Seo says the thing is about to fail. Hae-ri says they need a plan before it does. Jae-won keeps reading. His grandmother describes the ritual to destroy the hourglass. It requires 3 people who trust each other absolutely. No hesitation, no doubt. They must hold the hourglass together and concentrate on a single shared memory. A moment of pure connection. The demon feeds on isolation and fear and selfishness. Trust is the one thing it cannot digest. If three hearts beat as one, the hourglass will crack from the inside. The trapped lifespans will flood back to their original owners, and the demon will be banished. Jae-won closes the journal. Seo asks if he really thinks the three of them can pull that off. Jae-won looks at her, and then at Hae-ri. Then at Yeonji, who's just walked into the room with coffee for everyone. He says it's not going to be the three of them. It's going to be the four of them. Yeonji sets down the coffee and asks what she missed. They move to a private room in the hospital's east wing. Jae-won locks the door. He sets the hourglass on a metal tray table in the center of the room. The golden light pulses like a heartbeat. Slow and steady and threatening. He explains the ritual. 3 people minimum. Absolute trust. A shared memory. Seo crosses her arms and says she's a cop. She doesn't trust anyone. Hae-ri laughs and says she's a corporate heiress. She trusts even less. Yeonji says she's a lawyer. Trust is a liability in her profession. Jae-won says they'll start small. He asks each of them to think of a moment when they trusted someone completely. No walls, no masks, just pure and simple and real. Yeonji closes her eyes first. She says she remembers her father lifting her onto his shoulders at the beach when she was 6. The waves were scary, but his hands were steady. Hae-ri says she remembers her mother singing a lullaby the night before she died. She knew something was wrong, but her mother's voice made the world feel safe. Seo is silent for a long time. Then she says she remembers her partner covering her back during a drug bust 3 years ago. He took a bullet for her. He died 2 hours later in surgery. She says she trusted him more than anyone. Jae-won nods. He tells them to reach out and touch the hourglass. They hesitate. The hum is oppressive now. The thing feels alive and wrong and aware. Yeonji touches it first. Her fingers brush the black iron frame and she gasps. She says she can feel them. All of them. Hundreds of stolen lives pressed against the glass like moths against a window pane. Hae-ri touches the hourglass and her face goes pale. Seo touches it and her jaw tightens. Jae-won tells them to hold on, to concentrate, to find the common thread. The room fills with golden light. The hourglass vibrates. The crack widens another ½ inch. Sand spills onto the tray table and pools like liquid gold. The 3 women close their eyes. Their breathing synchronizes. Jae-won watches, and he sees something incredible. A thin thread of light connects the 3 of them. A shimmering strand. Lit from within. It wraps around the hourglass and tightens. Yeonji whispers that she can feel the demon pushing back. It's cold. It's ancient. It's furious. Hae-ri says it's showing her images of her father dying in a car crash, her mother wasting away, her company burning. She says she knows it's not real, but it hurts anyway. Seo grits her teeth and says it's showing her every person she couldn't save, every victim, every failure. The demon knows exactly where to push. Jae-won tells them to hold the line. He focuses on the thread of light. He thinks about every moment they've shared. The courthouse bombing, the warehouse raid, the farmhouse rescue, Seo's kiss in the cabin, Yeonji's hand on his arm, Hae-ri's quiet smile. He pours every bit of trust he has into that thread. And something shifts. The hourglass screams. It's a sound no glass should make, high and thin and full of rage. The golden sand explodes outward in a spiraling vortex. It fills the room with burning light. Jae-won shields his eyes, and when he looks again, the sand is not sand anymore. It's faces. Hundreds of faces swirling in a cyclone of stolen time. Men and women and children. All the lives Cha took over the centuries. They're screaming too, but their screams are different. They're singing. The 3 women open their eyes. The thread of light has become a rope, has become a chain, has become a bridge. Golden lifespans stream out of the hourglass, and into their hands, and into their hearts, and into the air around them. The demon howls and pushes back with a wave of pure darkness. Seo staggers. Hae-ri gasps. Yeonji grips the table. Jae-won shouts at them to hold on. He's about to step forward when the door slams open. It's No Jin-hyuk. His face is pale, and he's holding a phone with a cracked screen. He says Cha just emptied the vault. Every vial, every stolen lifespan. He's consumed them all. 3 centuries of stolen time in a single swallow. And he's coming here. Right now. Jae-won looks at the hourglass. The ritual is only half complete. The demon is still inside, and Cha Kwang-soo has just become more powerful than he's ever been. The hourglass stops screaming. The golden faces fade back into sand. The thread of light snaps, and the three women collapse against each other, exhausted and drained and barely conscious. Jae-won catches Soo-ah before she hits the floor. He eases her down and checks her pulse. Steady. He checks Yeonji and Hae-ri. All three are alive but completely spent. Jin-hyuk says they don't have much time. Cha is maybe 20 minutes out. Jae-won asks what Cha actually wants. Jin-hyuk says the hourglass, the demon, and every last drop of Jae-won's blood. Jae-won looks at the cracked artifact still humming on the tray table. The ritual was working. They just need more time. But Cha isn't going to give them any. He makes a decision. He tells Jin-hyuk to get the women to safety. Carry them if he has to. Jin-hyuk asks what Jae-won's going to do. Jae-won picks up the hourglass and tucks it into his jacket. The warmth is scalding now. He says he's going to buy them the time they need. He walks out of the hospital room and down the corridor. His chest already burning, his timer already ticking. He reaches the parking garage and the air changes. It gets cold. Cold in a way that has nothing to do with temperature. Cha Kwang-soo is standing at the far end of the garage. His suit is immaculate. His smile is calm. But his eyes are no longer human. They're furnace doors, burning gold and black and bottomless. He says he's been looking forward to this conversation for a very long time. Hae-won says the feeling isn't mutual. Cha laughs. The sound echoes off concrete pillars. He says Chae-won's grandmother was clever. She figured out the ritual, but she never figured out how to complete it before the demon pushed back. 3 people isn't enough. She learned that the night she died. Chae-won's blood runs cold. He asks what Cha means. Cha tilts his head. He says he was there the night of the fire. He watched Jae-won's grandmother try to destroy the hourglass with 2 other shamans. He watched the demon tear them apart. And then he set the fire himself. Chae-won doesn't think. He lunges. Cha sidesteps and grabs Chae-won by the throat. He lifts him off the ground with one hand. The hourglass falls from Jae-won's jacket and clatters onto the concrete. Cha looks at it with something like affection. He says the demon is almost free. The crack is nearly complete, and when it hatches, Jae-won will be the first thing it eats. Jae-won chokes out a question. He asks why Cha brought him here. Cha smiles. He says he didn't bring Chae-won anywhere. Chae-won came to him. And now the hourglass is right where it needs to be. Right where the ritual started 3 decades ago. Right where Jae-won's grandmother died. The walls of the parking garage flicker. Concrete becomes wood. Fluorescent lights become oil lamps. The hospital vanishes, and Jae-won finds himself standing in an old Korean hanok, with paper doors and a packed earth floor. This isn't the hospital. This is Gwanyeomri. This is Cha's childhood home. This is where everything began. Cha says, "Welcome to the place where gods are born." He raises his hand and black smoke pours from his fingers. And somewhere behind Jae-won, a voice he knows better than his own heart screams his name. Soo-ah. She didn't leave. None of them did. Soo-ah's voice cuts through the cold air of the hanok. She's standing in the doorway with Hae-ri and Yeonji behind her. None of them ran. None of them left him. Cha Kwang-soo turns his furnace door eyes toward the 3 women, and his smile falters for just a second. He didn't expect this. Jae-won shouts at them to get back, but Soo-ah steps forward instead. She's got her service pistol raised, and her hands are steady. She says she's not letting him fight alone. Hae-ri pulls something from her jacket, and it's the second journal. The one from Taeho's safe with the worn cover and the pages that smell like dust and flowers. She says she figured out what the grandmother meant. The ritual needs 3 people who trust each other absolutely. But it also needs a 4th. Someone to anchor them. Someone who's already given part of himself to the hourglass. Jae-won. He's the anchor. He's the one who's been feeding the artifact this whole time. Cha's smile vanishes completely. The paper doors of the hanok rattle on their frames. He says they're too late and the demon is already waking. The hourglass on the packed earth floor starts to hum. The crack widens another inch, and golden sand spills out in a thin, continuous stream. Sand doesn't fall downward. It rises. It spirals upward into the air like it's being pulled towards something invisible. Chae-won grabs the hourglass, and the heat is unbearable. It burns his palms, but he doesn't let go. He tells the women to get ready. Soo-ah and Hae-ri and Yeonji move without hesitation. They've been through too much to stop now. They kneel around Jae-won and place their hands on the hourglass. Cha screams something, but the sound gets swallowed by the rising wind. The golden sand forms a cyclone around the four of them. It's not screaming this time. It's singing. Hundreds of voices in a language Jae-won doesn't understand, but somehow recognizes. The thread of light from before reappears, and it's stronger now. It wraps around Sua's wrist, and Hairi's shoulder, and Yeonji's heart. It connects all three of them to Jae-won, and it pulses like a heartbeat. Hairi opens the journal and reads aloud. Her voice cuts through the chaos, and the words are old and strange. The Hanok shakes. The packed earth floor cracks in a spiral pattern, radiating outward from the hourglass. Cha lunges forward, but the golden cyclone throws him back. He slams into a wooden pillar, and the impact splinters the beam. Black smoke pours from his mouth and his eyes and his fingers. The demon inside him is fighting back. Sua closes her eyes, and Jae-won sees her face relax. She's found her memory. The one thing she's focusing on with absolute trust. He doesn't know what it is, but he can feel it through the thread of light. It's warm. It's something about the night she kissed him. Hairi's memory hits next, and it's the moment in the server room, when she realized Jae-won would risk everything for people he barely knew. When she decided he wasn't just a hired ass. Yeonji's memory comes last, and it's the courthouse. The bomb and the fire alarm, and the man who grabbed her arm and pulled her to safety. Before she knew his name. Before she knew anything about death timers or demons or stolen lifespans. She trusted him then, and she trusts him now. Three memories merge through the thread of light, and Jae-won feels them all at once. Three women. Three acts of trust. Three people who love him enough to follow him into hell. The hourglass screams. Not the demon this time, the glass itself. The crack runs from top to bottom, and golden light pours out in every direction. It's not sand anymore. It's pure energy, and it's flowing into the women, and into Jae-won, and into the air, and into the ground. The black smoke around Cha starts to thin. He's on his knees now, and his perfect suit is torn, and his calm expression is gone. He's terrified. The demon inside him is dying. Jae-won feels something shift in his chest. Not pain this time, something else. Something he hasn't felt since before the taxi accident, and before the hospital, and before he saw those first numbers floating above a nurse's head. It's his own lifespan. It's coming back. The golden light pours into him, and his timer doesn't reset, but it stretches. Weeks become months. Months become years. The hourglass shatters. Iron frame crumbles, and the glass explodes outward, and the golden sand scatters across the packed earth floor. But it doesn't stay sand. Each grain becomes a face. Hundreds of faces rising into the air and flying through the paper doors and out into the night. The stolen lifespans are returning to their owners. Every man and woman and child Cha killed over 3 centuries. Every life he bottled and stored and consumed. All of them are free. Cha Kwang-soo screams, and it's the worst sound Jae-won has ever heard. It's not human. It's the sound of something ancient and evil being ripped out of a body it's inhabited for 100 years. The black smoke pours from Cha's mouth in a torrent and forms a shape above him. It's tall and thin, with too many limbs and eyes that burn like dying stars. This is the demon. This is what Cha brought into the world in 1919. It reaches for Jae-won with a hand made of void and hunger. But the golden faces are still flying past, and they're not just fleeing. They're attacking every stolen life. Cha took turns on the demon and tears into it. The creature shrieks and writhes and shrinks. The golden light eats through it like acid through paper. Cha is on his hands and knees now, and Jae-won watches his face change. The ageless, smooth skin cracks and wrinkles. His dark hair fades to white and then to nothing. His body shrivels. 300 years of stolen time are leaving him all at once. He looks up at Jae-won, and his eyes are just eyes now. No fire and no gold and no bottomless darkness. Just an old man who made a deal he couldn't undo. He says something, but his voice is too weak to hear. It doesn't matter. The demon gives one final shriek, and then it collapses. It folds into itself and becomes a pinpoint of black light. The pinpoint pulses once, and then it's gone. The golden faces scatter into the wind, and the hanok goes still. The paper doors stop rattling. The cracked floor stops glowing. Cha Kwang-soo lies motionless on the packed earth. His body is 300 years old now, and it looks it. Dust and bone and nothing more. Jae-won drops the broken frame of the hourglass. His hands are blistered and his chest is heaving. But he's alive. Sua opens her eyes and looks at him. She's crying, but she's smiling. Hairi closes the journal and sets it down with trembling fingers. Yeonji exhales, and the sound is half laugh and half sob. They did it. The demon is gone, and Cha is dead, and the stolen lifespans are free. Jae-won helps Seo to her feet, and she doesn't let go of his arm. Haeri stands on her own and brushes dust from her jacket like she hasn't just helped destroy an immortal monster. Yeonji looks around the Hanok and asks if they're still in Ganyam-ri. The walls flicker. The oil lamps dim. The paper doors slide back into concrete pillars. The packed earth floor becomes asphalt. They're back in the parking garage. The hospital is just a building again, and the night air is cold and clean. Jin-hyuk comes running through the garage entrance. He's out of breath, and his phone is still cracked, and he stops dead when he sees them. He looks at the dust on the ground where Cha's body should be. He looks at the shattered hourglass fragments scattered across the concrete. He looks at Jae-won. Jae-won just nods. Jin-hyuk doesn't say anything for a long moment. Then he asks if it's really over. Jae-won says the demon is gone, and Cha is dead. Jin-hyuk leans against a concrete pillar and slides down until he's sitting on the ground. He says he spent 10 years working for that man. 10 years thinking there was no way out. Seo holsters her pistol and walks over to him. She offers her hand. Jin-hyuk looks at it for a second, and then he takes it. He stands up and brushes himself off and asks what happens now. Jae-won doesn't get a chance to answer, because somewhere behind them a phone rings. Yeonji's phone. She pulls it from her pocket and looks at the screen. Her face goes pale. She says it's the Minister of Justice's office. The call is on speaker now, and a man's voice fills the parking garage. He says he's been watching. He says he's disappointed that Cha Kwang-soo failed. He says the demon was just one of many. And then he says his name. Choi Young-ho, the Minister of Justice. The man who framed Jae-won's father and destroyed his family. The man who gave Cha his power a century ago. The demon's true master. He says he'll see Jae-won soon. Yeonji stares at her phone. Sua's hand moves to her pistol. Haeri asks what he meant by one of many. Jae-won picks up a shard of the hourglass from the concrete. It's still warm. The golden sand inside is gone, but the iron frame still hums faintly. He says the fight isn't over. Choi Young-ho has been pulling strings from the shadows for longer than Cha was alive. He's more powerful and more connected, and he's not hiding anymore. Jin-hyuk says Choi controls half the National Assembly. He's got judges and prosecutors and police chiefs on his payroll. Going after him isn't like going after Cha. It's not a secret war. It's a war against the entire system. Seo says she doesn't care. She's a cop, and she's been fighting corrupt systems her whole career. Haeri says O Group has resources Choi doesn't know about. Yeonji says she's got enough evidence to open an investigation. It's not much, but it's a start. Jae-won looks at the three women standing around him in the cold parking garage. Seo with her steady hands and her unshakable courage. Haeri with her sharp mind and her family's fortune. Yeonji with her legal brilliance and her refusal to back down. And Jin-hyuk who switched sides and saved them all. He's not alone. He never was. He tucks the hourglass shard into his jacket and says they've got work to do. The team heads back upstairs to the hospital. Tae-ho is still in the ICU, and Jae-won needs to tell him it's over. He needs to tell him Cha is dead, and the demon is destroyed. When they reach the room, Tae-ho is awake. His timer reads 12 years and 4 months. The stolen lifespans didn't just return to their original owners. Some of them found their way to the man who spent decades fighting to destroy the artifact. Tae-ho looks at Jae-won, and he doesn't need to ask what happened. He can see it in their faces. He says he knew they could do it. Jae-won sits down beside the bed and tells him everything. The ritual and the demon, and Choi Young-ho's phone call. Tae-ho listens without interrupting. When Jae-won finishes, the old detective closes his eyes for a moment. He says Choi Young-ho was always the real threat. Cha was just the vessel. Choi is the one who taught Cha the ritual and gave him the demon. Choi is the one who's been running the network for a century. He says there's something else, and his voice is heavier now. He says Jae-won's grandmother didn't just try to destroy the hourglass. She tried to destroy Choi too. And she failed. She died in that fire, and Choi walked away without a scratch. Jae-won's hands tighten on the bedrail. He asks if Choi has the same power as Cha. Tae-ho says no. Choi is something worse. He doesn't steal lifespans. He creates demons. He binds them to people and uses them to control the country from the shadows. Every corrupt politician, and every dirty deal, and every death that was ruled an accident. Choi Young-ho was behind all of it, and now he knows Jae-won destroyed his oldest servant. He's not going to let that go unanswered. Taeho says they need to move fast. Choi will strike before they can organize. Jae-won asks what they're supposed to do against a man who creates demons. Taeho reaches under his pillow and pulls out a small iron key. He says there's another safe, not the one in his office. This one is in a storage unit in Incheon. Inside it is everything Jae-won's grandmother left behind. Her research on Choi and his demons, and the ritual she was developing to stop him. She knew she might not survive, and she made sure her work would outlive her. Jae-won takes the key. It's cold and heavy, and it feels older than it looks. He asks Taeho why he didn't tell him this before. Taeho says he wasn't sure Jae-won was ready. Destroying the hourglass was the test. Now he knows. Jae-won is ready for whatever comes next. Soo-ah steps forward and asks what the plan is. Jae-won looks at the key in his hand. He looks at Taeho, who is finally free of the tether. He looks at Soo-ah and Hairi and Yeonji, who just helped him destroy a demon. He says they go to Incheon. They find the safe and they learn everything his grandmother knew about Choi Young-ho. And then they bring him down, just like they brought down Cha. Hairi says her family has a private jet. They can be in Incheon in an hour. Yeonji says she'll start building the legal case. Jin-hyuk says he knows some of Choi's people. People who might flip if they know Cha is dead. Soo-ah says she'll call in every favor she has with the department. Jae-won stands up and tucks the key into his pocket. The hourglass shard is still warm against his chest. He says they leave tonight. The team files out of the hospital room and into the corridor. Taeho watches them go with a faint smile on his weathered face. He's not worried anymore. The fight is in good hands. Jae-won walks down the hospital hallway with Soo-ah on one side and Hairi on the other. Yeonji is already on her phone pulling up files. Jin-hyuk is making calls to his contacts. The golden faces are gone and the demon is ash. And Cha Kwang-won-soo is dust on a parking garage floor. But Choi Young-ho is still out there. The Minister of Justice, the Demon Master, the man who killed Jae-won's grandmother. Jae-won touches the hourglass shard through his jacket. It pulses once. Like a heartbeat. Like a promise. The fight isn't over, it's just beginning. The team doesn't even make it to the airport. Soo-ah's phone buzzes before they reach the hospital lobby. She answers, and her face goes pale in about half a second. She says they've got a problem and holds up the screen. A breaking news alert shows Jae-won's face on every major network. The headline reads, "Former logistics manager wanted for terrorist threats against government officials." Choi Young-ho moved faster than they ever expected. Jae-won stares at his own mugshot and says that's not even a real photo. Hairi zooms in and points out the background. It's from the courthouse security footage the day he saved Yeonji. Someone edited it to make him look like he's planting something. Yeonji already has her phone out, and she's calling every contact she has at the Justice Ministry. Nobody picks up. First patrol car pulls up outside the hospital within 3 minutes. 2 more follow right behind it. Jae-won watches the red and blue lights flash across the parking lot and toggles his ability on reflex. The officers climbing out of their cruisers all have normal timers. Decades and decades of life ahead of them. These aren't Choi's demons, they're just cops doing their job. Soo-ah grabs his arm and pulls him toward the stairwell. She says the elevators are compromised and they need to move now. Hairi kicks off her heels and follows barefoot. Yeonji shoves her phone in her pocket and grabs the flash drive with all the Cha evidence. Jin-hyuk blocks the stairwell door behind them with a fire extinguisher. They descend 6 flights of stairs in about 90 seconds flat. Jae-won's lungs burn, and his chest still aches from the ritual. But he doesn't slow down. Soo-ah leads them through the basement level and out a service exit. The alley behind the hospital smells like medical waste and old rain. They're 3 blocks away when the task force surrounds the building. Hairi makes a call on a burner phone she pulled from her bag. 20 minutes later, a black van with tinted windows pulls up to the curb. The driver is one of her family's security guys, and he doesn't ask questions. They pile into the van, and Hairi tells him to drive east. Jae-won asks where they're going. Hairi says her family owns a safe house in Gangdong, and nobody knows about it. The van moves through Seoul while Jae-won watches the news on Yeonji's phone. The charges keep piling up. Terrorist threats and obstruction of justice and assault on a government official. The Minister of Justice himself released a statement calling Jae-won a clear and present danger to national security. Choi Young-ho looks directly into the camera and says he will not rest until justice is served. His face is calm and his voice is steady, and his eyes are completely dead. Jae-won recognizes that look. It's the same emptiness he saw in Cha Kwang-soo the moment before the demon emerged. Soo-ah gets a text from a contact in the department. She reads it twice, and her jaw tightens. She says there's a nationwide manhunt and every precinct has his photo. Yeonji says they can fight this in court and prove the footage was doctored. Hairi says Choi owns half the judges in the country. Jin-hyuk speaks up from the back of the van for the first time since they left the hospital. He says Choi doesn't want a trial. He wants Jae-won dead before sunrise. The safe house is a modest apartment on the 8th floor of an unmarked building. No doorman and no cameras, and no paper trail connecting it to the O family. They file inside and lock the deadbolt, and Hairi closes all the curtains. Chae-won sits on the couch and rubs his temples. Sua stands by the window, peeking through the gap in the curtains. Yeonji sets up her laptop on the kitchen table and starts digging through legal databases. Jin-hyuk leans against the wall with his arms crossed. He says he knows how Choi operates. Choi will send his hounds first. Not cops, and not prosecutors, and not arrest warrants. Demons. Kind that don't show up on security footage and don't leave evidence. Chae-won asks how many. Jin-hyuk says Cha had one demon bound to him. Choi has been creating them for a century. The network is enormous, and every major institution has someone who's been bound. Judges and police chiefs, and hospital administrators and news directors. All of them feeding Choi information and influence. All of them just as trapped as Cha was. Chae-won pulls out the small iron key from his pocket. He holds it up to the light and says they need to get to Incheon. They need his grandmother's research. It's the only thing that can tell them how to fight Choi. Sua says they can't even leave the apartment right now. The entire country is looking for him. Hairi says she can send her people to retrieve the safe. The key is tied to him somehow. He can feel it humming in his palm like it knows he's the one who's supposed to use it. Yeonji looks up from her laptop and says there might be another way. She pulls up a document she found in the court system. Choi Young-ho is scheduled to attend a charity gala tonight at the Shilla Hotel. A fundraising dinner for victims of violent crime. The irony makes Sua laugh out loud. Yeonji says the gala is public, and there will be hundreds of guests and dozens of reporters. If Choi is there, he can't send demons after Jae-won without exposing himself. That's their window. Chae-won stands up and says they'll hit Incheon, while Choi is stuck at the dinner. Sua asks how he plans to get across the city with every cop looking for him. Jin-hyuk pulls out his phone and scrolls through his contacts. He says he knows a guy. 2 hours later, Chae-won is riding in the back of a refrigerated delivery truck. It smells like frozen fish and diesel. Jin-hyuk's contact drives without asking questions and without looking in the rearview mirror. The truck grinds through Seoul traffic and onto the highway toward Incheon. Hairi tracked the storage unit address from Taeho's records before they left. Yeonji stayed behind at the safe house to monitor the news and coordinate remotely. Sua rode with Jae-won in the back of the truck because she refused to let him go alone. She sits across from him in the dark, with her knees pulled up and her phone flashlight aimed at the floor. She says she's been shot at, and she's been in high-speed chases, and she's kicked down more doors than she can count. But this is the first time she's ever felt like the whole world was closing in. Chae-won says that's how Choi works. He isolates people and makes them feel powerless, and then he offers them a deal. The same deal he offered Cha 100 years ago in a dying village. Sua asks if Jae-won would ever take that deal. He doesn't answer right away. The truck hits a bump and the frozen fish crates slide a few inches. Chae-won says he's already got something Choi can never offer. People who trust him. People he trusts back. Sua reaches across the dark and finds his hand. She doesn't say anything else. The truck arrives in Incheon just before midnight. Storage facility is a sprawling complex of corrugated metal buildings near the port. Fog rolls in off the Yellow Sea, and the air tastes like salt and rust. Chae-won jumps down from the truck and helps Sua down after him. The driver nods once and pulls away without a word. Unit 47B is at the far end of the lot. The lock is old but well-maintained, and the key slides in smooth as oil. Chae-won turns it, and the bolt clicks open. He pulls up the rolling door, and the fluorescent lights flicker on automatically. The unit is small and clean, and completely empty except for a single fireproof safe bolted to the concrete floor. Chae-won kneels in front of it and enters his grandmother's birthday on the digital keypad. The safe beeps twice and the door swings open. Inside are 3 items. A leather-bound journal thicker than the one Taeho kept in his office. Small wooden box with intricate carvings that seem to shift when Jae-won looks at them directly. And a photograph. Chae-won picks up the photograph first. It shows his grandmother as a young woman standing beside an old hanok. She's smiling and her hand is resting on the shoulder of a young man who looks exactly like a younger Choi Young-ho. He flips the photo over, and there's writing on the back in his grandmother's elegant script. It reads, Choi Young-ho and I, Spring 1943, the day we bound the first demon. Soo-ah looks over his shoulder and asks what it means. Jae-won opens the journal and starts reading. His grandmother's words pour across the pages in dense, neat rows. She writes about growing up in Japanese-occupied Korea and discovering her shamanic abilities when she was 12. She writes about meeting a brilliant young scholar named Choi Young-ho, who was studying ancient Korean rituals. She writes about falling in love with him. The journal covers decades of their work together. They studied old texts and traveled to remote villages and learned to communicate with spirits. They were partners and equals, and for a long time they were in love. But Choi wanted more. He wanted to control the demons rather than just talk to them. He wanted to bind them and command them and use their power to shape the world. Jae-won's grandmother refused. She believed the spirits were sacred, and binding them was a violation of the natural order. They argued about it for years. Eventually, Choi went behind her back. He performed a binding ritual on his own, and it worked. He created the first bound demon and used it to influence Japanese officials and protect Korean civilians. He told her the ends justified the means. She told him he'd crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. They parted ways in 1947 and never saw each other again. But Choi didn't stop. He kept binding demons and building his network and accumulating power. By the time Jae-won's grandmother realized how far he'd gone, it was too late. He was already inside the government and inside the courts and inside every institution that mattered. She spent the rest of her life researching a way to undo what Choi had done, a ritual to unbind demons and destroy the anchors that held them in place. The journal is full of diagrams and notes and half-finished incantations. The final pages are dated just weeks before the fire that killed her. She writes that she's finally found the key. Choi Young-ho's entire network is anchored to a single artifact hidden somewhere in Seoul. Just like Cha Kwang-soo was bound to the hourglass. If someone destroys that artifact, every demon Choi has ever bound will be released at once. And Choi himself will die within seconds. Jae-won closes the journal, and his hands are shaking. Soo-ah asks what the artifact is. He opens the small wooden box. Inside is a jade pendant the size of a thumbprint on a chain of braided silver. It pulses with the same faint warmth as the hourglass shard in Jae-won's pocket. The note tucked beneath it says, "The pendant is a fragment of the original anchor. It was broken into 3 pieces and hidden by Jae-won's grandmother before she died. If all 3 pieces are brought together, they will point to the location of Choi's artifact." The first piece is in Jae-won's hand. The second piece is somewhere in the National Museum of Korea. The third piece was buried with Jae-won's grandmother in her grave outside Seoul. Jae-won tucks the pendant into his jacket, right next to the hourglass shard. Soo-ah's phone buzzes. It's Yeon-ji. Her voice is tight and urgent. She says the charity gala just ended early. Choi Young-ho left the event 10 minutes ago, and now a black sedan is following her car through the streets of Gangdong. Jae-won tells her to get to the safe house and lock the doors and wait for backup. Yeon-ji says she can't go back to the safe house. The sedan isn't just following her, it's hurting her. Every turn she makes, there's another vehicle blocking the way. They're pushing her toward the river. Soo-ah grabs the journal and the box and shoves them into a duffel bag. She says they need to move. Now. Jae-won calls Jin-hyuk and tells him to find Yeon-ji and get her out. Jin-hyuk says he's already on his way. He's tracked her phone and he's heading toward the Han River with a few of his most trusted guys. Jae-won and Soo-ah burst out of the storage unit and into the foggy Incheon night. The delivery truck is long gone. They're stranded at the port with no vehicle and no backup and a duffel bag full of secrets. Soo-ah hotwires a motorcycle parked near the loading dock. She says she learned it at the academy. And Jae-won decides now is not the time to ask questions. They tear through the fog toward the highway, with Jae-won holding onto Soo-ah's waist and the duffel bag pressed between them. The pendant hums against his chest, and the hourglass shard hums in counterpoint. Like they're singing to each other, like they know something is about to happen. Jin-hyuk calls back 20 minutes later. He found Yeon-ji's car abandoned near the riverbank. Her phone is on the ground and the screen is cracked. But there's no sign of her. And no sign of the men who were following her. Jae-won tells him to keep looking. He tells him to check every warehouse and every dock and every shadow along that river. Jin-hyuk says there's something else. He found a note tucked under the windshield wiper. It's written on Ministry of Justice letterhead. The message is only 3 words. Come to Ganeum-ri. Choi Young-ho is waiting at the place where it all began. The same Hanok where Cha Kwang-soo made his deal with the demon over a century ago. The same village where Jae-won's grandmother burned alive. Jae-won tells Soo-ah to turn around. They're not going back to Seoul. They're going to Ganeum-ri. Soo-ah asks if that's the smartest move. Walking straight into Choi's trap with no plan and no backup, and one piece of a broken artifact. Jae-won says Choi has Yeonji. There is no other move. The motorcycle roars through the night with Seoul behind them and the mountains ahead. Hae-ri calls and Jae-won tells her what they found in the safe. She says she'll mobilize her family's resources and get to Gwanyeom-ri as fast as she can. Jin-hyuk says he'll take the river road and meet them there. The duffel bag bounces against Jae-won's knee with every bump in the road. The pendant pulses and the shard hums, and the journal pages rustle in the wind. His grandmother's words are still burning in his mind. She couldn't stop Choi. She tried and she failed, and she died. But she left the pieces behind for someone else to finish what she started. Jae-won tightens his grip on Soo-ah's waist and watches the dark hills rise up ahead. The fog gives way to a clear, cold night, and the stars come out over Gwanyeom-ri. A single light glows in the window of the old hanok, the same hanok from the photograph, the same hanok where everything began. Choi Young-ho is waiting inside, and so is Yeonji. The motorcycle stops at the edge of the village. Soo-ah kills the engine, and the silence is immediate and absolute. Jae-won swings off the bike and pulls the duffel bag over his shoulder. He can feel the pendant and the shard both humming now. They recognize this place. They know what's about to happen. Soo-ah draws her service weapon and chambers around. She says she's coming with him. Jae-won doesn't argue. They walk toward the hanok together, with the cold mountain wind at their backs and the ancient demon master waiting behind paper doors. The paper door slides open with a whisper of old wood. Choi Young-ho sits cross-legged on a silk cushion in the center of the room. He looks exactly like the photograph from 1943. Same sharp cheekbones and same cold smile, and same dark eyes that have watched a century pass without blinking. A single lantern burns on the low table beside him. The light catches something hanging around his neck. It's a pendant, jade and silver, and pulsing with the exact same warmth as the one in Jae-won's jacket. The second piece. Choi doesn't stand up, and he doesn't raise a weapon, and he doesn't even look surprised. He just gestures toward two cushions on the opposite side of the table. He says he's been expecting them. Soo-ah keeps her gun trained on Choi's chest as she steps through the door. Jae-won scans the room for Yeonji. She's not here. No ropes, and no cage, and no shadowy corner where a hostage might be hidden. Just Choi and the lantern, and that pulsing jade pendant. Jae-won asks where she is. Choi picks up a small iron teapot and pours 3 cups of tea. The steam curls in the lantern light like something alive. He says the lawyer is safe. He says he never touched her. The note was just an invitation, and the sedan was just an escort, and Yeonji is already back in Seoul by now. Soo-ah says she doesn't believe him. Choi shrugs and pushes one of the teacups across the table. He says they can call her if they want. Jae-won pulls out his phone and dials Yeonji's number. It rings once. She picks up. Her voice is shaking, but she's alive. And she's standing in the Gangdong safe house with Hae-ri and Jin-hyuk and a dozen of Hae-ri's family guards. She says a black sedan dropped her off 20 minutes ago. The men in the car didn't say a word, and they didn't hurt her, and they just opened the door and drove away. Jae-won tells her to stay put and keep the doors locked. He ends the call and looks back at Choi. Choi asks if he'll sit now. Jae-won kneels on the cushion, but he doesn't touch the tea. Soo-ah stays standing with her gun still raised. Choi takes a sip from his own cup and closes his eyes like he's tasting something precious. He says this hanok was rebuilt after the fire. Every beam and every tile and every paper door was restored exactly as it was in 1919. He says he comes here when he needs to remember why he started. Jae-won asks if he started by burning an old woman alive. Choi opens his eyes. The smile doesn't fade, but something behind it shifts. He says Jae-won's grandmother was the only person who ever understood him. They met in 1939 at a shamanic conference in Pyongyang. She was brilliant and fearless, and already researching the boundary between human souls and demonic entities. He was young and ambitious, and convinced he could control forces that had never been controlled before. They became partners. They spent years mapping the rituals and cataloging the entities and testing the bindings. Choi says they were going to change the world together. Soo-ah asks what changed. Choi sets down his teacup. He says the war changed everything. The occupation and the division, and the chaos of a country tearing itself apart. Choi saw the institutions crumbling, and the leaders failing, and the people suffering. He decided the only way to save Korea was to control it. Every judge and every police chief, and every hospital director, and every media executive. Bound to a demon, and bound to him. Jae-won's grandmother disagreed. She said binding demons to humans was no different from what the Japanese had done to Korea. She said freedom could not be built on slavery. They argued for years. Then in 1947, she stole the original anchor and broke it into 3 pieces and hid them. Choi has been searching for those pieces ever since. Jae-won pulls the jade pendant from his jacket. It glows warm in the lantern light. Choi's eyes lock onto it. He says that piece belonged to Jae-won's grandmother. She wore it around her neck the night she died. He says he searched the ashes of the fire for hours, but he never found it. Jae-won asks why he set the fire. Choi leans back and folds his hands in his lap. He says he didn't set it. He says he came to Gyeongri that night to offer her one last chance. Join him and control the demons together and build a new Korea from the ashes of the old one. She refused. She said she would rather die than become what he had become. Choi says she lit the fire herself. She burned the hanok down around her own body to destroy the research and protect the pendant and make sure Choi could never find the other pieces. Jae-won's hand tightens around the jade. The pendant pulses against his palm like a heartbeat. Choi says he's been waiting 70 years for someone to finish what she started. He says Jae-won is that someone. He says the pendant in Jae-won's hand and the pendant around his own neck are 2 of the 3 pieces. The third piece is in the National Museum, sealed inside a statue that has never been opened. If Jae-won brings him the third piece, Choi will release every demon he's ever bound. Every judge and every police chief and every corrupt official will be free. The network will collapse overnight. Jae-won asks what the catch is. Choi smiles. He says there's no catch. He says he's old and he's tired, and he's been carrying this burden for a century. He wants to be free too. Seo says she doesn't buy it. Choi shrugs and pours himself more tea. He says belief is optional. The offer stands regardless. Jae-won asks what happens to the people who were bound, the ones who had demons living inside them for decades. Choi says some will survive, some won't. The oldest bindings are so deep that removing the demon is like removing a vital organ. But most will live and most will remember nothing, and most will wake up tomorrow as ordinary people with ordinary lives. Jae-won looks at the pendant around Choi's neck. It's identical to the one in his hand. Same size and same color and same pulsing warmth. He asks how he knows Choi isn't lying. Choi reaches up and unclasps the chain from around his neck. He holds the pendant out toward Jae-won. He says, take it. Take it and test it and see for yourself. Jae-won hesitates. Seo whispers that this is a trap. Choi says of course it's a trap. Everything in his life has been a trap for 100 years. But sometimes the only way out is through the trap door. Jae-won reaches across the table and takes the second pendant. The moment his fingers close around it, both pendants flare with golden light. The hourglass shard in his pocket vibrates so hard it almost jumps out of his jacket. Choi's eyes widen. He says that's interesting. He says the pendants have never reacted to anyone before. Not to him, and not to any of his subordinates, and not to any of the shamans he's tested over the decades. They only react to one bloodline. Jae-won's bloodline. The same blood that flowed through his grandmother's veins. Jae-won looks down at the 2 pendants glowing in his palm. They're singing now. A high, thin note that vibrates in his teeth and hums in his bones and makes the lantern flame flicker. Seo asks what's happening. Choi stands up slowly. The teacup rattles on the table. He says the pendants are responding to the anchor. Jae-won is the anchor. He's been feeding the artifact for months, and the artifact is feeding him back. And now the pendants recognize him as the true vessel. Choi's smile finally drops. He says this wasn't supposed to happen. The original anchor was broken to prevent exactly this. Jae-won's grandmother shattered it, so no one person could ever control all 3 pieces. But Jae-won has been pouring his own lifespan into the hourglass shard for months. He's become a living fragment of the anchor. The pendants don't see a human anymore. They see a piece of themselves. Choi lunges across the table. Seo fires. The bullet hits Choi in the shoulder, and he stumbles, but he doesn't stop. Black smoke pours from the wound instead of blood. The demon inside him is old and powerful, and it doesn't care about bullets. Choi's hand closes around Jae-won's wrist. The pendants scream. Golden light explodes through the hanok and blows out the paper doors and shatters the lantern and sends Seo tumbling backward. Jae-won feels something tearing inside his chest. Not pain exactly, more like a door opening. Choi's face is inches from his, and his eyes are completely black now. He whispers that Jae-won's grandmother made the same mistake. She thought she could control forces she didn't understand. She thought loyalty mattered more than power. Choi says she was wrong. He says Jae-won is wrong too. The pendant around Choi's neck starts to crack. The jade splits down the middle and black smoke pours out of the fissure. Choi screams. It's not a human scream. It's the sound of a century of stolen lives shattering all at once. The black smoke forms a shape behind Choi, tall and thin and wrong in ways that make Sua's flashlight flicker and die. The demon is loose. Choi collapses to the floor, clutching his chest. His skin is gray, and his breath is ragged, and his eyes are human again. He looks up at Jae-won with something like relief. He says he's been carrying that thing inside him since 1943. He says it whispered to him every night and showed him every death and made him complicit in every horror. He says he wanted to be free. He just didn't know how. The demon turns toward Jae-won. It doesn't have a face, but it has attention. The full weight of its focus presses down on the room like a physical force. Sua scrambles to her feet and fires 3 rounds into the black shape. The bullets pass through and embed in the wall. The demon doesn't even notice. Jae-won holds up both pendants. The golden light is still pouring out of them. The demon recoils. It hisses like steam escaping a boiler. Choi laughs weakly from the floor. He says the pendants were never weapons. They were keys. 3 keys to unlock 3 bindings. Jae-won's grandmother designed them that way. She knew the demon couldn't be killed with force. It could only be unmade by severing every tether that held it to the human world. Choi says he's been holding one tether for 80 years. The demon inside him was the first binding, the original anchor. If Jae-won breaks that tether, the demon will lose its grip on this dimension. Jae-won asks how he breaks it. Choi closes his eyes. He says Jae-won already knows how. The ritual requires 3 people who trust each other absolutely, plus an anchor who has already given part of himself to the artifact. Jae-won looks at Sua. She's reloading her gun even though the bullets are useless. She meets his eyes and nods. She trusts him. Pendant in Jae-won's left hand pulses warm. 1 tether recognized. Choi says the second tether is the artifact itself, the hourglass shard in Jae-won's pocket. It was part of the original binding ritual, and it's still connected to the demon. If Jae-won accepts the connection, the shard will recognize him as its master. Jae-won pulls the shard from his pocket. It's blazing hot now, and the iron frame is vibrating, and the crack is spreading wider by the second. He wraps his fingers around it and lets the heat burn into his palm. The shard pulses once, twice. Then it goes still. The humming stops. The golden light inside fades to a soft, steady glow. Second tether recognized. Choi whispers that the third tether is him, the vessel, the one who made the deal in 1919 and gave the demon a home in the human world. He says Jae-won has to break the binding, not kill the demon, not destroy it, just cut every thread that connects it to this dimension. Choi says he's ready. He's been ready for 70 years. Jae-won kneels beside the old man and places 1 pendant on Choi's chest. Choi's breath catches. Pendant sinks into his skin like a stone dropping into still water. Golden light spreads through his veins and illuminates him from the inside. The demon screams. It lunges toward Jae-won with tendrils of black smoke reaching for his throat. Sua throws herself between them. She doesn't have a weapon that works, and she doesn't have a ritual. And she doesn't have anything except her body and her trust. She grabs Jae-won's hand and presses it against her heart. She says she believes in him. The demon freezes. The golden light from Choi's body surges outward and catches the black smoke and pulls it back. Choi's eyes open one last time. They're clear and human, and full of something that might be gratitude. He says, tell Jae-won's grandmother he's sorry. Then the light consumes him. The black smoke collapses inward like a dying star. The demon screams one final time, and then it's gone. The hanok goes silent. Lantern flickers back to life. Sua is still holding Jae-won's hand against her chest. Her heartbeat is steady and strong and completely unafraid. Jae-won looks down at the floor where Choi's body should be. There's nothing left. Just a single jade pendant with a crack running through it and a faint golden glow fading at the edges. 2 pieces down. 1 to go. Jae-won's phone buzzes. It's Hae-ri. She says she's 5 minutes out with Jin-hyuk and a van full of her family's best people. She asks if they're okay. Jae-won says the demon is gone. Choi is gone. The first binding is broken. Hae-ri is quiet for a moment. Then she says that's great and all, but she's still coming anyway because someone has to make sure they don't bleed out in a haunted hanok. Sua laughs. It's a shaky, exhausted laugh, but it's real. She holsters her gun and looks at the cracked pendant in Jae-won's hand. She asks what happens now. Jae-won says now they find the third piece, the one in the National Museum, the one that will break the final binding and free every demon Choi ever created. He says once that piece is destroyed, the network collapses. Every corrupt judge and every bought cop and every puppet politician loses their demonic backing. The whole system crumbles. Jae-won toggles his ability. He looks at Soo-ah's death number. 47 years and 2 months and 9 days. Same as always. He looks at himself in the reflection of the shattered lantern glass. His own number is still invisible. But something is different. He can feel it. The constant low-grade hum of the hourglass shard has stopped. The drain on his lifespan has stopped. Whatever Choi did in those final moments, it broke the tether between Jae-won and the artifact. He's not feeding it anymore. He's just holding it. Soo-ah asks what he sees. Jae-won says he sees a future. It's corny and it's sappy, and Soo-ah rolls her eyes. But she's smiling. Headlights sweep through the broken paper doors. Hyri's van pulls up outside the hanok, and Jin-hyuk jumps out before the wheels even stop turning. He's holding a first aid kit and a thermos of coffee, and a look of barely contained panic. He says he found Yeonji's car, and he found the note, and he spent the last hour convinced they were both dead. He asks what happened. Jae-won holds up the 2 pendants. One whole and one cracked, but both glowing with the same soft golden light. He says they won. Jin-hyuk stares at the pendants for a long moment. Then he hands Jae-won the thermos and says next time they're doing the dangerous ritual with better backup. Hae-ri steps out of the van wrapped in a thick coat and a fierce expression. She marches straight up to Jae-won and punches him in the arm. She says he's not allowed to disappear into the mountains without telling her ever again. Then she hugs him. Soo-ah watches the hug with a complicated expression. Jealousy and relief, and something warmer underneath. She catches Jae-won's eye over Hae-ri's shoulder, and she doesn't look away. Tension between the 3 of them is still there, and it's still unresolved. And it's still going to be a problem. But right now, the problem feels more like a promise. Jae-won pulls back from the hug and looks at the team gathered in the wreckage of Choi's hanok. Jin-hyuk with his coffee and his first aid kit, and his loyal men waiting by the van. Hae-ri with her family's resources, and her fierce heart and her unshakable belief that Jae-won is worth protecting. Soo-ah with her steady hands and her steady trust, and her steady heartbeat that didn't falter even when a demon was screaming in her face. And Yeonji back in Seoul holding down the safe house, and probably already drafting a legal strategy for whatever comes next. Jae-won says one piece left. He holds up the 2 pendants. One from Incheon, and one from Gonium-ri, and both humming with the same warm song. The 3rd piece is in the National Museum, hidden inside a statue that has never been opened and sealed with protections that have held for 70 years. Hae-ri says she knows a guy. She always knows a guy. Soo-ah laughs and Jin-hyuk groans, and Jae-won tucks the pendants into his jacket next to the hourglass shard. The shard is warm but not burning. The humming is soft but not painful. The drain is stopped. The first time since he woke up in that hospital bed, Jae-won feels like he might actually survive this. The team piles into the van as the first light of dawn touches the mountains behind Gonium-ri. The hanok stands empty behind them, rebuilt and redestroyed, and finally free of the demon that haunted it for a century. Jae-won watches the old house shrink in the side mirror. He thinks about his grandmother and the fire she lit and the choice she made. She died to protect the pendant. She died believing someone would finish what she started. He tightens his grip on the duffel bag. He's going to finish it. But first, he's going to kiss at least one of these women before Jin-hyuk's driving gives them all motion sickness. The van smells like coffee and antiseptic and victory. Jae-won holds the thermos Jin-hyuk handed him, but he doesn't drink. He's staring at the 2 pendants in his palm. One from Incheon and one from Gonium-ri. And both of them are humming. The sound is soft and warm, and it vibrates through his fingers like a cat purring. Soo-ah is sitting next to him in the back seat. Her shoulder presses against his, and she hasn't moved it. She's reading something on her phone, but her eyes keep flicking to the pendants. Hae-ri is in the passenger seat, navigating Jin-hyuk through the mountain roads. She's got her phone in one hand, and a bag of shrimp chips in the other. She's been stress eating for the last 20 minutes. Jin-hyuk takes a corner too fast, and everyone lurches sideways. Soo-ah grabs Jae-won's arm to steady herself. She doesn't let go right away. Hae-ri notices in the rearview mirror, and her chip crunching gets a little more aggressive. Jae-won pretends he doesn't see either of these things. He tucks the pendants back into his jacket and pulls out his phone. Yeonji hasn't texted since they left the hanok. He calls her. It rings 3 times before she picks up. Her voice is tired but steady. She says she's been monitoring the news, and they have a problem. A big one. The Ministry of Justice just issued a nationwide arrest warrant for Seo Jae-won. Terrorism charges. Choi Young-ho is moving fast. Jae-won asks if she's safe. She says she's fine, and that she's already drafted 3 different legal arguments against the warrant. She's also hacked into the police dispatch system, and she knows exactly where every patrol car in Seoul is right now. Seo leans over to hear the call. She asks Yeonji if the warrant has her name on it too. Yeonji says not yet, but it will. Choi is going to bury everyone who helped Jae-won. The whole team is about to become fugitives. Hae-ri turns around in her seat. She says her family's legal team can stall the warrant for at least 48 hours. Maybe 72 if she calls in some favors. She's already dialing her father before anyone can respond. Jin-hyuk says they need to ditch the van. It's registered to Hae-ri's company, and the plates are going to get flagged the second they enter Seoul. He knows a guy who runs a scrapyard in Bukin. They can swap vehicles there. Chae-won tells him to make it happen. The van changes direction at the next exit. 40 minutes later, they're rolling into a junkyard that smells like rust and motor oil. A man with grease up to his elbows waves them toward a garage. Jin-hyuk's guy. He's got a beat-up sedan waiting with fresh plates and a full tank. No questions asked. Jin-hyuk hands him an envelope of cash. The man counts it and nods and disappears back into the garage without a word. Hae-ri looks at the sedan. It's beige. She says she's going to have words with Jin-hyuk about his taste in getaway vehicle. Jin-hyuk says it's inconspicuous. Hae-ri says it's ugly. Seo laughs, and it's the first real laugh any of them have heard in hours. They transfer the duffel bag and the first aid kit and the thermos to the sedan. Chae-won takes the wheel this time. Seo sits shotgun. Hae-ri and Jin-hyuk take the back. The sedan pulls out of the scrapyard and merges onto the highway towards Seoul. The sun is fully up now. The mountains behind them are gold and pink and impossibly beautiful. Chae-won watches them shrink in the rearview mirror. He thinks about the Hanok and the demon and the century of suffering that ended in that one moment of golden light. He thinks about his grandmother and her journal and the fire she lit. He thinks about Choi Young-ho sitting in his office in the Ministry of Justice, surrounded by demons and bodyguards, and a network of corruption that stretches across the entire country. Choi knows they're coming. He's known since the hourglass shattered and the first binding broke. He's preparing for them right now. Chae-won tightens his grip on the steering wheel. Let him prepare. It won't save him. Seo puts her hand on his knee without looking at him. She says she can hear him thinking from here. She tells him to breathe. He breathes. The sedan crosses the city line into Seoul just after 8 in the morning. The streets are already crowded. Commuters and delivery trucks and school buses full of kids who have no idea what's happening in the shadows of their city. Chae-won toggles his ability. The numbers appear above every head. A businessman crossing the street has 42 years. A woman pushing a stroller has 61 years. A teenager on a skateboard has 53 years. Normal numbers. Normal lives. Normal people who have no idea that a demon-worshipping minister of justice is about to try to kill them all. Chae-won toggles the ability off. He doesn't want to see the numbers change. He doesn't want to know what Choi is planning. He just wants to stop it. Yeonji texts the address of a new safe house. A basement apartment in Mapogu, owned by a client she defended 3 years ago. The client owes her a favor. Chae-won punches the address into the GPS. 20 minutes later, they're parking in an alley behind a laundromat. The basement apartment is small and clean and smells like fabric softener. Yeonji is already there. She's got her laptop open on the kitchen table and 3 different news channels playing on mute. She looks up when they walk in. She looks at Jae-won. She looks at Seo standing close to him. She looks at Hae-ri brushing shrimp chip crumbs off her coat. Her expression is complicated. Jealousy and relief and determination all tangled together. She stands up and walks over to Jae-won. She doesn't hug him. She doesn't kiss him. She pokes him in the chest with one finger. She says he's an idiot, and she's been worried sick, and if he ever disappears into the mountains without backup again, she's going to sue him. Hae-ri snorts. Seo grins. Chae-won says he missed her too. Yeonji's cheeks go pink. She turns back to her laptop before anyone can see her smile. She pulls up a satellite image of the National Museum of Korea. The 3rd jade pendant piece is inside a statue in the museum's permanent collection, a gilt bronze matria from the Three Kingdoms period. It's been on display for 70 years, and no one has ever opened it. No one has ever even looked inside. The statue is hollow. The pendant is inside it, and the museum is closed for renovations for the next 3 days. Jin-hyuk leans over Yeonji's shoulder. He asks if she's suggesting they break into the National Museum. Yeonji says she's not suggesting it. She's planning it. Everyone turns to look at her. She shrugs. She says she really does know a guy this time. Her family funded the museum's conservation lab 5 years ago. She's got the security schematics and the staff schedules and the access codes for the loading dock. She pulls up the files on her tablet. Jae-won looks at the blueprints. The statue is in Gallery 3 on the second floor. The loading dock bypasses the main security checkpoint. The guard rotation has a 12-minute gap between 3 and 3:12 in the morning. 12 minutes to get in and get to the statue and get the pendant and get out. Seo says it's doable. Jin-hyuk says it's insane. Yeonji says insanity is their brand at this point. Jae-won looks at the pendants in his jacket. The two pieces hum against his ribs like they know what's coming. He says they do it tonight. The team spends the afternoon prepping. Hae-ri makes phone calls and pulls strings, and acquires a museum staff uniform in Jae-won's size. Seo maps the route from the loading dock to Gallery 3 and back again. She times it 3 times and then she times it a 4th time just to be sure. Jin-hyuk acquires a magnetic lock bypass and a glass cutter and a portable vacuum clamp. He refuses to explain where he got them. Yeonji monitors the police dispatch and the news and Choi's public schedule. Choi is giving a press conference at 9 in the morning. He's going to announce new anti-terrorism measures. He's going to use Jae-won as the excuse. The team eats dinner together around the tiny kitchen table. Convenience store kimbap and instant ramyeon and a bag of shrimp chips that Hae-ri has been hoarding. The mood is tense but warm. They're all tired. They're all scared. They're all still here. Seo reaches across the table and steals a piece of Hae-ri's kimbap. Hae-ri steals a bite of Seo's ramyeon in retaliation. Yeonji watches them and shakes her head, and then steals from both of them. Jae-won watches the 3 women he's somehow ended up with. A hot-tempered detective, and a chaebol heiress, and a brilliant lawyer. All of them risking everything for him. All of them stealing each other's food like it's a competition. He feels something swell in his chest. It's not the hourglass. It's not the pendant. It's just gratitude. Massive and overwhelming and completely inappropriate for a man who's about to break into a national museum. Jin-hyuk catches his eye across the table. He raises an eyebrow. He says Jae-won looks like he's about to cry. Jae-won says he's just tired. Seo snorts. She says he's a terrible liar. Hae-ri says it's one of his worst qualities. Yeonji says it's actually kind of endearing. 3 women look at each other. The tension is still there. The jealousy and the rivalry and the unspoken competition. But there's something else underneath it now. Something that looks a lot like respect. Something that looks a lot like friendship. Jae-won doesn't point it out. He's not stupid. He just finishes his kimbap and lets the warmth of the moment settle over the table like a blanket. Night falls. The team suits up. Jae-won puts on the museum staff uniform. Navy blue polo shirt with the museum logo on the chest. Khaki pants. A laminated ID badge with a fake name. Hae-ri clips it to his collar. Her fingers brush his neck, and she doesn't pull away immediately. Seo checks her weapon. Yeonji loads the security bypass onto a tablet. Jin-hyuk drives. The sedan pulls up to the museum's loading dock at 2:58 in the morning. The streets are empty. The cameras are on a loop. Hae-ri's guy came through. Jae-won gets out of the car. Seo gets out behind him. Yeonji stays in the car with Jin-hyuk and Hae-ri. She's running comms. She tells Jae-won he has 12 minutes. Jae-won nods and walks toward the loading dock. The door opens with a soft click. The lock bypass worked. The museum is dark and silent and full of shadows. Statues and pottery and ancient swords that haven't been used in centuries. Jae-won moves through the corridors. His footsteps are quiet on the marble floors. Seo is a shadow behind him. Gallery 3 is on the second floor. The stairs are marble, and they creak under his weight. He pauses. Listens. Nothing. They keep moving. The gilt bronze Maitreya is in the center of the gallery. It's about 3 feet tall, sitting cross-legged with a serene expression and hands folded in its lap. Jae-won's heart is pounding. The pendants in his jacket are humming so loudly now that he's sure Seo can hear them. He approaches the statue. Seo stands guard by the door. Yeonji's voice in his earpiece says 8 minutes. Jae-won examines the statue. There's a seam along the base, almost invisible, sealed for 70 years. He pulls out the glass cutter and the vacuum clamp. His hands are steady. The glass cutter scores the seal. The vacuum clamp attaches to the base. He pulls. The base comes away with a soft hiss. Inside the hollow statue is a small jade pendant, identical to the other 2. Braided silver chain and warm, pulsing glow. Jae-won reaches in and takes it. The moment his fingers close around the pendant, all 3 pieces hum in unison. The sound isn't just in his ears. It's in his bones. It's in his blood. It's in the marble floor and the ancient walls and the dark, silent galleries all around him. The museum wakes up. Not the lights, not the alarms. Something older, something deeper, something that has been waiting for 70 years. Seo asks what that sound is. Jae-won says it's the anchor. All three pieces are together. They're singing. And somewhere across the city, Choi Young-ho hears it too. He hears it, and he knows exactly what it means. Jae-won tucks the third pendant into his jacket with the other two. The warmth spreads through his chest like sunlight. He stands up and turns toward the door. Yeonji's voice in his earpiece says 5 minutes. They move. Down the stairs and through the corridors, and back toward the loading dock. The humming doesn't stop. It follows them like a ghost. It wraps around Jae-won's shoulders like a cloak. The sedan is waiting by the loading dock. Jin-hyuk has the engine running. Jae-won and Seo climb in. The sedan pulls away from the museum and merges onto the empty Seoul streets. Jae-won pulls out all three pendants. They're glowing now. Soft golden light that fills the car like a lantern. Hairi reaches out and touches one. The light pulses brighter. Seo touches another. Yeonji touches the third. The three pendants and the three women and Jae-won holding them all together. The anchor and the trust and the love that has been building since the very beginning. Jae-won knows what comes next. Choi Young-ho heard the song. He knows the pieces are together. He knows the anchor can be found. He's going to throw everything he has at them. Every demon and every corrupt official and every bot cop in the city. The final battle isn't coming. It's already here. Jin-hyuk asks where they're going. Jae-won looks at the pendants. He looks at the three women holding them. He looks at the sunrise starting to break over the eastern edge of Seoul. He says they're going to Choi's office. Right now, while he's still scrambling, while he's still afraid. They're going to walk into the Ministry of Justice with all three pendants and all three women and the anchor that binds them together. They're going to find the hidden artifact. They're going to break the final binding. They're going to free every demon and destroy every corrupted institution and tear down the entire network that Choi spent 70 years building. Seo grins. It's fierce and wild and a little bit terrifying. She says she's in. Hairi cracks her knuckles. She says she's been waiting for this. Yeonji closes her laptop. She says she's already drafted the legal defense. And Jae-won looks at his team and his pendants and his impossible future. He's got three women who love him and a best friend who won't let him die and a power that might actually save the world. He's got everything he needs. The sedan turns toward the Ministry of Justice. The sun rises over Seoul. The final battle begins.